Here.
Councilmember Shea.
Present.
Councilmember Griffin. Here. Councilmember Moody. Here. Councilwoman Jackson. Here. Mayor Tasselberg.
Here. And so now Councilmember Shea will introduce someone who's going to pray with us this evening.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, it's my pleasure to introduce Sister Leanna Joseph, who is a member of the Hospitaller Sisters of Mercy, to give our invocation tonight in recognition of Women's History Month. Sister is from India. She has been in Charleston since August of 2016, and she's ministering for the residents at Carter May Home, which is located in my district. And just a brief introduction, the Sisters of Mercy was founded in Rome in 1821. And besides their regular vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, like all other religious congregations, the Sisters of Mercy take a special vow of serving in hospitals and other social medical activities. They call it the vow of hospitality. All of their formation and apostolic works are directed to one aim, caring for the sick. They are active throughout the world in Italy, the United States, India, the Philippines, Vietnam, Indochina, and Vietnam twice, and Switzerland, and Nigeria, and Poland. Over the years, the Sisters of Mercy congregation has expanded its works of mercy to respond to the needs of many, including teaching, caring for the elderly, family faith formation, women empowerment, and ministry to street children. They have 3 congregations in the United States. Sister, please lead us in prayer.
Thank you. Eternal Father, I thank you on behalf of each and everyone gathered here this evening and give glory to your name. Thank you for your abundant blessings. Thank you for the unconditional love and trust that you have placed in our lives. Thank you for allowing us to be involved in useful work and for the honor of serving others. Thank you for the talents and abilities that you have given us to fulfill our duties. We pray for our city. Please protect us from any harm or threat and give everyone here the grace to feel your presence among us. And please keep us united in charity. We pray for our Mayor, John Tecklenburg, for all our city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. Almighty God, we ask you with childlike freedom to graciously bless them with wisdom and prudence, to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our time, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a sincere thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and appropriate, and the ability to work together in harmony even when facing real challenges. Please grant them joy and peace in their family lives, and assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Charleston. In the most blessed name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sister Joseph. God bless you for your service to others. God bless. So, just one announcement first. And I think some of our guests today and visitors, thank you for being with us. Might be your first time at City Council chambers. Just in case the unlikely event that we had to vacate the premises, these are the 2 main exit doors from this chamber. And of course, y'all up on the balcony have just the one door over there. There's an exit door over here in the room to my right as well. And we got don't use the elevator if we had to exit. Just use the 2 stairs going down and then the 1 stair out the front. But it's very unlikely. But just so everybody knows how to get out of here if we need to. So we're going to have a presentation of an annual award called the Harold Kuhn Award that was named in honor of a just incredible neighborhood volunteer and activist. I knew Mr. Kuhn briefly back in the 90s when I used to work for the city. Before we do that, I do want to thank our neighborhood commission members for their work this year on reviewing the nominations for this award. And I wanted to let everyone know we have a new member to the Neighborhood Council, which is the DuPont Station Neighborhood Coalition. They've been approved for status in our Neighborhood Council. And this is a group of 17 smaller neighborhoods that came together as one neighborhood association. And they're from Council District number 11, Councilmember Moody, in your district. So we now have 113 neighborhood associations in our neighborhood council, and I got to share with y'all that in many ways this is where the rubber meets the road. These are the citizens who really look after the quality of life in their neighborhoods and our cities. They have their eyes on and ears to the ground, watching and looking at things that are going on and helping the city proactively to make Charleston a better place each and every day. So my thanks to the coalition and to the association, everybody that participates. They're a great group. So now if I could call up to join me. Yes, sir.
I don't want to leave out Mr. Wagner. Some of these folks are in his district also.
Oh, okay. I was going by the script here. It said District 11. Okay. So some of those neighborhoods are also in Council District 5. Okay. Gotcha. Thank you for the correction. So if any members of the Neighborhood Commission are here, and I'd also like to ask Councilmember Gary White to join me, along with, well, I'm going to call her name out in a minute. If Karina and all her family and the folks from Daniel Island would come on up behind me at this time, that would be terrific. So this award was established back in 1998, and each year I charge the neighborhood commissioners to select an individual among a pool of nominees. We had a great group of nominees this year who best exemplify Mr. Kuhn's dedication to civic awareness. We had many, again, worthy nominees, but tonight I'm very proud to announce that the recipient of the 2018 Harold Kuhn Award is Karina Buckman of Daniel Island, and this is Karina right here. So I've got a few things to share with you about Karina and what she does in our city and in her neighborhood. And I don't see how she has time to do anything else. You'll see what I mean in a minute. She's a native of the United Kingdom. What city, Karina?
From the Isle of Wight.
From the Isle of Wight. There you go. She came here to the United States in 2012 and to Daniel Island with her husband and children in 2014. So she's a relatively new citizen for Charleston, but in 2016, she sought to improve safety conditions on Daniel Island and curb auto pedestrian accidents through a creation of a school safety patrol, which she organized with 2 shifts of daily volunteers. They didn't have one before that time. Karina studied safety protocols for improvements around school facilities with the help of our traffic and transportation and police departments, and led to enhanced safety and crosswalks and a reduction of accidents on Daniel Island. Karina also created the Around the World in 80 Minutes event, which included a passport game facilitating experiences and interactions with various countries and cultures. All funds raised benefited Camp Happy Days. In 2015, she helped organize a collection effort for those struggling in the aftermath of statewide flash flooding, and led residents in coordination with the Catholic Church of St. Clair of Assisi relief effort. Following Hurricane Matthew, Karina launched Change for Haiti to raise money for Water Missions International. Her efforts resulted in tens of thousands of dollars raised and later matched by Daniel Island Community Fund for a total of $20,000. These are only a fraction of the contributions Karina has made for the good of our community. So tonight, I am proud to award her the 2018 Harold Kuhn Volunteer Award. I welcome Karina to the podium if you'd like to say a few words.
Well, firstly, thank you. I will keep this short and sweet. But I'm very humbled and surprised by this amazing recognition and award. I thank those that thought to nominate me, and again, I'm humbled they thought that I would be worthy. And I'm even more humbled by the fact the Commission felt that I was a worthy winner. And while I very much appreciate all the kind words, I would like to point out that I live in an amazing neighborhood of people that have huge hearts. And very often when a need is found, disaster strikes, I live in a community where people just naturally want to help. And so while I'm very flattered by the recognition, I feel that really all I did was put a little bit of planning together and gave my community an avenue to help and just gave them a little momentum. So all the achievements that have been listed are not achievements of myself alone. They are the achievements of the Daniel Island community. Two important people to recognize would be my dear friend Marie Del Chapo and Jane Baker, because whenever I threw my crazy ideas over the wall, they were always, yeah, go for it. So without their staunch encouragement, I'm certain that none of the items listed would have been achieved. And I, of course, have to thank my family and my husband. I'm sure there are times when he shakes his head and thinks, oh, here she goes again. But as I tell my children on a very regular basis, you should never underestimate the value of a single act of kindness. And while one person can't change the world, a simple act of kindness can change the world for one person. And so with that, I guess just thank you again and encourage everybody here to do their little bit, because those little bits can add up to a whole lot. So thank you very much.
Well, Karina, your heart of service just shines right through, and I'm sure that you don't just do a single act of kindness every day, but many, many acts of kindness. So thank you again. That's really, really terrific. All right. So next, if Helen Johnson Richards, Elaine Johnson Jones, and Captain Taylor Scarden would join me up at the podium next, I would greatly appreciate it. So the reason I've asked Helen and Elaine and Taylor to join me is that Charleston has the most remarkable opportunity to host the commissioning of the USS Ralph Johnson in just 2 weeks coming, to honor truly one of our most famous and brave citizens. And I have a proclamation to present to Helen and Elaine, members of the family, and Captain Taylor Scarden has been the head of the local committee that's been organizing this event for our community for this year. And y'all, it's going to be terrific the end of this month. But let me read this proclamation, if I may, in full, to honor Ralph Henry Johnson. Whereas Private First Class Ralph Henry Johnson was born on January 11th, 1949 in Charleston, South Carolina. He attended Courtney Elementary School and Simonton Junior High School in Charleston. And whereas on March 23rd, 1967, Private First Class Ralph Henry Johnson enlisted in the United States Marine Corps Reserve in Oakland, California. On July 2nd, he was discharged to enlist in the regular Marine Corps. Whereas upon completion of the recruit training with the 1st Recruit Training Battalion, Ralph Henry Johnson was transferred to Camp Pendleton, California in September of '67. He underwent individual combat training with Company Y, 3rd Battalion, 2nd Infantry Regiment, and basic infantry training with the Basic Infantry Training Company, 2nd Infantry, completing basic training in November of 1967. On November 1st, Ralph Henry Johnson was promoted to Private First Class, and in January 1968, he arrived in the Republic of Vietnam and served as a reconnaissance scout with Company A, 1st Reconnaissance Battalion, 1st Marine Division. On March the 5th, in 1968, Ralph Henry Johnson was on a 4-day operation by the 3rd Battalion, 7th Marines in Arizona Territory when his 15-man reconnaissance patrol was attacked by a platoon-sized enemy force on Hill 146 in the Quam Duck Valley. And when a hand grenade landed in the fighting hole, he shared with fellow Marines. Private First Class Ralph Henry Johnson yelled a warning and immediately hurled his body over the explosive charge, absorbing the full impact of the blast in order to save his comrades. He was killed instantly. And we recognize Private First Class Ralph Henry Johnson for his heroic actions, including through his receipt of a posthumous award of the United States' highest military declaration, the Medal of Honor, through the naming of the Ralph Henry Johnson VA Medical Center here in Charleston, and through the commissioning of the USS Ralph Johnson, a new Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer with air and ballistic missile defense capabilities and long-range surface-to-strike capability. Now, therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, do hereby proclaim Saturday, March 24th, 2018, that's when we will commission the vessel, as Private First Class Ralph Henry Johnson Day in the City of Charleston. Let's have a round of applause. Would you like to address the chambers, please? If you like.
I would like to thank each and every one of you all for being here. I thank the mayor for awarding this in honor of Ralph. Ralph was a very caring and humble person. He would never say no. Whatever it means to give, he give. And he give until he gave his life. Thank you.
Of course, we're not prepared to say anything, but we are. This has been a very special thing for me over the last year to get to know the family, the Johnson family. The other neat thing is we're getting ready to do this commissioning ceremony in 2 weeks. We have room for 5,000 people on the pier. We're limited by pier space, but about 7,000 people have asked for tickets and are probably going to get them. So if you are coming, be prepared to sit close together, which we're going to be that day. We're going to be low country. We sit together nice in nice closeness. We have a Charleston flair that's going to be on it, but the most rewarding thing for me that I have seen is how this community has come together to support this thing. I get letters, I get emails every day, we get contributions. It's just a wonderful thing that, that the city has done and has pulled together. One thing I would like to mention is we, you know, you heard Helen talk. Ralph changed people's lives. And what we have done is we wanted to continue that legacy to remember Ralph, so he's not just known as a kid who jumped on a grenade or the VA Medical Center's named after him. We want to be able to remember him every year, and the best way to do that, we have felt, is to start a scholarship in his name, and that's now been established, and we're going to let it grow, and we're going to keep that, hopefully turn that into a full scholarship, but it's going to take a little bit of time and effort, but we're going to get there. But I do just want to say thank you very much to the council, and I'll look forward. Thank you also for sponsoring the breakfast that morning, too. It's going to be great. And Mr. Wagner, good to see a surface warfare guy over there, too. Thank you very much.
All right. So, so next we have no public hearings tonight. We do have our minutes from February 13th and February 26th. 26 aren't ready yet, so we're going to defer those. We have the minutes available that got sent out for February 13th.
Second.
We have a motion to approve any additions, corrections. Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. So that's going to bring us next to our citizens participation period, which is the only opportunity that folks will have to address council tonight. Now, if you're not familiar with our system, we do have a sign-up sheet. I guess we've already closed it off because it's up here. Okay. So we have 25 people signed up for a 30-minute period. So everyone that we call out will get 1 minute to speak. And with the forbearance of council, if I may, because I sense, I've heard that a lot of folks are here to comment on the parking matters in our city, about our meter charges and about such things. I would like to just share a few comments about that and maybe ask our director of our Committee on Traffic and Transportation to also make a few comments, because we're not taking any action on this matter tonight. And we welcome you and glad to hear your comments. So glad you're with us. But I do want to share that this matter came before council late last year. And it's been an idea that's been brewing for many years, because the city, before I became mayor, had a fella come down here in 2014 named Gabe Klein, and he did a Peninsula mobility report. In fact, one of the recommendations there was to raise parking meter prices, because there are a number of reasons behind it, but I mean, one of the primary reasons is spaces where the meters are located are intended primarily for customers, you know, that won't be staying for the whole day or working a whole shift. And so that's one kind of reason behind it. And another reason behind it is to get our city and community to think a little more about trying to use their cars less and use other modes of transportation and all like that. And I know we got a lot to work on, but that was part of the underlying motivation behind it all. Now, the city has been working very hard with the idea that we were going to make this change to provide other opportunities, particularly for employees, to be able to reasonably park. And you know, particularly in the restaurant business, I must say, on King Street, in our main central business district, for years, those properties were already existing and restaurants put in place, and they got a lot of variances from the city over the years about, you know, about their parking. If you built a new building today, a hotel or any office building or anything, you would have to provide a parking space for all of your employees. You know, and so over time, with all these variances that were given, a lot of business owners really, in a way, got a free ticket, you know, of not having to provide their employees parking. So that was a factor of how we got to where we got. But anyway, got to where we are. But the city has provided 4 parking garages where after 3 o'clock, you can park for the rest of the day for 7 hours. And after 5 o'clock, to park the rest of the day for $5. So if you think about if you're out there plugging a meter, and you shouldn't really stay at a meter for over 2 hours according to our rules, but if you were plugging the meter, so to speak, you know, and then every now and again you got the ticket. So it really might make economic sense to pay the $5 and be in the garage and you won't get a ticket. But the other option we come up with that we're very excited about is to have a park and ride lot. And we feel like this is really important for the future of our city. Develop numerous park and ride facilities where people can park off the peninsula and for $5 take a shuttle to go down to where they work. So that's a little summary. But this was all really came from our Traffic and Transportation Committee. Chairman of that committee is Mike Seeking. So Mike, you want to add anything to what I just said?
Sure, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and everyone here. I know lots of you. It's been an interesting conundrum for us in the city ever since long before I got elected to council, which is now 9 years ago. The whole idea of management of parking in downtown Charleston, given the limited space that we have. And whenever we have a parking discussion, the first thing anybody ever says is build more parking garages. We're not going to probably be doing that anytime in the near future, so we've got to manage where we are. There's a lot of people here from the hospitality industry. Obviously, I think there's been a lot of comment that this is something that was a target of the hospitality industry. I just want to let you know that there was never a time in my committee, in any committee sitting around this table, at any council member, that we were targeting anything other than trying to make sure we manage the space we have in the city as well as we possibly could. Just a couple of facts and figures for everyone sitting here that you may not know. In the city of Charleston right now, there's about 7,000 hospitality workers in place, less however many of you are in here tonight. So 7,000 minus few, 7,000. We have in the entire city, and this goes to MUSC, all over the peninsula, well out of the main corridor of where we find the restaurants and the hotels, we have 1,703 parking meters. That's how many we've got. For 7,000, that's just hospitality workers. In the main part of the city, in the core of the city, there are about 350 parking meters, 350. So the model of looking for a parking space on the street, if you can find one and you can find time to get out and put money in the meter, works for about 3% of the people who are currently in place. And that's just the hospitality industry recognizing that metered parking is transient parking, and really those numbers shrink down a whole bunch because if you're feeding a meter, which we encourage you, please don't do that, but even if you are, it's not practical to go from Upper King Street to Broad Street to feed a meter. That's going to take you a couple hours in a shift. So we've been thinking a whole lot about this. The driving force behind the raise in the rates was a couple-fold. One is $1 an hour to park on the street of a city where there are 20,000 people live on the peninsula, 15 to 20,000 workers coming in every day, and 6 million tourists is an unsustainable long-term model for all of us. Resident, business, employee, everybody. It's just unsustainable model. So we have to have alternatives. And if there's a gripe out there that's legit, we all need more alternatives. We need better and safer places to park. We need better public transportation. And we need to cooperatively get together and move around this peninsula, not just one person, one car all the time. We get that. So what's on the tab? So you've got 1,703 meters, 400 in the core of the city. There's 7,000 of you working currently just in the hospitality industry. Then there's retail and everything else. At any given time, probably right now, it's only Tuesday, there's 15 or 20,000 people clamoring around this peninsula looking for a place to park. The mayor mentioned our garages are available. One of the garages, the biggest garage I think we have, or the second biggest garage we have, is the visitor center garage. After 3 o'clock, you can get into that garage for $7. After 5 o'clock, you can get in for $5. I've been in there. It's right by the law school. You'll know where it is. Every night, there are spaces available for $5 in there. Avail yourself of it. It's close. It's safe, especially the King Street corridor. Park and ride. I am honored by this council to be a member of CARTA and to have been appointed chairman of CARTA. We are working on park and ride. It's not a perfect solution yet, but it's a start. We're going to start the first ever park and ride in the history of this region, if all goes perfectly, in the next 2 weeks. If it doesn't, it'll be in the next 3 weeks. from Morrison Drive to downtown, there will be a shuttle running 21 hours a day, every 10 to 15 minutes along the Meeting and King Street corridor, turning at Broad and coming back up. I've ridden it myself personally about 3 times, depending on traffic, depending on what time of day it is. It is anywhere between a 15 and 20-minute loop. That's what it is. I mean, it's a 15-minute loop. If you get there in the middle of the night on King Street, it takes a little longer. We are in the process of opening that lot. We thought we had 145 spaces. In configuring it, there's 175. We know that's not nearly enough. The math I've told you, it's just a fraction, but it's a start. Those buses will be running. They will be safe. The lots will be operated 24 hours a day, lit. There will be security on site 24 hours a day. You will not be taken to a remote area and left alone. That's not going to happen. So there's a lot of parts and parcel to where we are. But the parking meter issue that everyone is here on tonight, for us, is a city management issue and a budget management issue. And we have obligations to make sure that we can provide all of the things we're talking about to all of you. And currently, a model where you can put $2 in a meter at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and park there until 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock the next morning, so that's 16 hours for $2. I'm hoping that everyone in this chamber, just from an economic standpoint, recognizes that's not a model that is sustainable for us or for the industry. So I know you all are here because you don't like the parking meters going up, but please understand there are alternatives out there that we will make sure we do a much better job of publishing for everybody. Worst case scenario after 3 o'clock is you can park for $7 all night till the next morning. 5 o'clock, $5 in places that are convenient. The park and ride will be up and running. We're going to start downtown. We've already identified at least 1, if not 2 places, West Ashley, where we're going to do park and ride. Your state, the Department of Transportation, is doing an entire park and ride study. We got a call today about all underneath the highways, and low line, all those areas, making those park and rides in places you can park. So we are cognizant that in a city that has 6 million tourists a year, that it needs people to work in that industry to support the biggest industry we've got. Hospitality drives us. We know that. It drives us. It's a labor-intensive business. We're a small peninsula with many, many needs. I just hope that everyone in here knows that we, I mean, this week alone have spent, Tuesday, hundreds of hours collectively and thinking and working towards this. So the meters are going to $2. Just by the way, just by way of sort of comparison, I know people don't like comparisons. In Savannah, anyone been to Savannah lately? In the core of the city, $2 to park. New Orleans, $3 an hour on-street parking. New York, if you're in the hospitality industry and you want to park downtown, you can't do it. It's illegal. There is no place to park on the street for short periods of time. Same thing in Los Angeles. Chicago's $4. So we are not trying to play catch up with the Joneses, but we are trying to make sure that we get people parking in places that are safe and efficient for all of the needs of our industry, of our citizenry, and of our visitors. And the model of sort of playing parking space roulette at 4 o'clock in the afternoon just isn't sustainable. A couple hundred people get them every day. The next 6,800 are scrambling. So this really talk is for the 6,800 out there. We're working to help you. Right. We know that you're not making a bunch of money. So when you come and comment to us tonight, we're cognizant of all this. We know you don't like it, but we're going to work hard to see what we can do to make it as good as we can.
So now we're, thanks for letting us give you that little preview. It might be some information you didn't know yet. Maybe you did. But we'll have a public participation period. And again, if you hadn't been here, we'll call your name. The clerk will call the name. You come forward, give us your name and address, and I'll ask the audience together, no outbursts or big things of applause. If a speaker would like to ask the assembly here how many agree with him or her, they want to show of hands or something like that, that's just fine. So thank y'all for being with us again. We're all ears to hear what y'all have to say. 1 minute.
Muhammad Idris, Armin Zachner, Kristen Perkins. And then there's a name that I'm not sure what it is, but the address is 1609 Boston Street.
Evening, Muhammad Idris.
Jamison Jackson.
I would like for the hospitality group to realize that the people who are addressing you say one thing with their mouth, but they're like hot grits. You know, it burns. These are the same people who told us, the poll, that the land was contaminated, and they put innocent people and break up families and put big buildings to cause the traffic jam. So they'll say one thing with their mouth, but they'll do another thing altogether. They don't care nothing about you. All they care about is money. Broad Street, the name Broad. Broad is a prostitute, and a prostitute do anything for money. And this is down here. All these big business and lawyers that making all this money, the hospitality committee, or the hospitality people shouldn't have to pay no money at all for parking. The judges and the lawyers and these councilmen who are getting all these perks should be paying the money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Armin Dorfner.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I want to thank you for tackling the issue of the Calhoun Monument and for undertaking a public discussion, which I think will probably be going on for a good while. Some of my friends tell me it's not a good idea, that it is just a symbol and it will drive us apart. And maybe they're right, we'll find out. But it is just a symbol. But symbols are important, and it's a symbol of things that are even more important, fundamental things like housing and jobs and safety, and the way the different races differ in that or are divided on that. So if we can't talk about a statue, frankly, which is actually a piece of stone, if we can't talk about that frankly, how are we ever going to talk about those more fundamental things? And so that's why talking about the Calhoun statue may actually be an instrument of getting to deal with problems. Pardon me? Time. Okay. I just wanted to say one more thing in one sentence, and that's Calhoun was Mr. Slavery like Babe Ruth was Mr. Baseball. So if there's context about Calhoun, that's the context. If we can't say that, we can't say anything. The statue says he's our hero. There are noble words at the top, and thank you very much.
Thank you. And if I may interject for council and the public, that this Thursday at 6 o'clock at the county library, there are two professors here from California State University, Blaine Roberts and Ethan Keitel, who are going to explore the history of the Calhoun monuments. That's 6 o'clock at the county library, as we decided we would take some time and continue the conversation about this issue in our community.
My name is Kirsten Perkins. I live at 1742 Sam Rittenberg. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. I do work in hospitality, and I do appreciate the comments that you made. I have to fly by the seat of my pants because my entire statement is changed. I am reminded of going to a theme park. In terms of extending the meters to 10 p.m. You go to a theme park, you pay your $50 to get in, you pay your $10 to park, it's midday, you're hungry, now you're paying $18 for a single slice of pizza. It feels gross, and it happens because they can, and you're at the mercy of the people who are serving you the food. Extending meters to 10 p.m. to me feels very theme park, feels very tourist trap, and I worry about the reputation of the city and our standing as the #1 travel destination in the country if the meters are extended. I'm fine with them doubling. You got to get the revenue from somewhere, but the extension to me feels gross. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Jamison Jackson, and my address is 1609 Balsam Street, and agree with her. We understand the need for revenue, and the meter increase in time, or what is proposed right now, is going to cut wages about $1 to $2 per hour for a lot of employees that work in the city. The park and ride, you mentioned percentages earlier, is only going to help 9% of the hospitality. With your added, the garages is still not going to attack this problem, even with your 6 million tourists. And you have to think that the tourists seem like they're almost the priority here, whereas it should be the residents of the city that are the priority. So what we suggest is meeting in the middle, perhaps some parking stickers for people that work downtown. You can do a registration fee, perhaps do that biannually so you're still getting your revenue, but you are decreasing the cost and the impact upon the people here in the city. And then as far as the increases are concerned, perhaps doing it incrementally. Maybe do your $2 an hour raise, but then wait a year and then extend the time and then extend the time again the year after that. It doesn't have to be such an impact. Thank you.
Abbi Firestein, Colin McDonald, Kristen White, Jonathan Graham. I think I left down zero.
Any of those called out?
Hey, I'm Abbi Firestein. I live at 1728 East Avalon Circle. I reside in Charleston and work at Broad Street Barbershop, along with an amazing team of girls. We strive to provide excellent haircuts at competitive prices. This becomes more difficult to keep prices low with parking rate increases. Any increase in parking directly and adversely affects all employees of local businesses on the peninsula. At present, we are subject to changing parking spaces every few hours and leaving work to pay meter fees, which add wait time to our customers and further congest spaces they also occupy. Furthermore, when we are engaged with a customer and cannot reach the parking meter in time, we are subject to fines comparable to what we make working an entire hour. Charleston is in desperate need of parking reform. More accessible parking garages, longer time blocks on meters, and better parking solutions for employees in the service and hospitality industry would be a good start. Thank y'all.
Hi, my name is Colin McDonald. I live on James Island. I have been in the hospitality industry since Hurricane Hugo, and I have a keen sense of pride in the amount of effort and gains that we have made in the last 25 plus years in the hospitality industry. This city is a beautiful city, and what makes this such an unbelievable destination for us is the hospitality that we have gained. The amount of growth in the hotel and food and beverage industry is because of the workforce that has been diligently hard work year in and year out to get to where we are today. The people that live in North Charleston are going to find jobs in North Charleston. The people who live in Mount Pleasant are going to find jobs in Mount Pleasant. They're not going to come downtown to deal with this parking issue when they can find comparable jobs in their own communities. I am very concerned about the welfare and the future growth of the industry I love so much and have so much passion for, that if you continue to think that parking is an issue for the whole, we need to find solutions in the middle ground. The amount of businesses that will go out of business, restaurants and hotels will close because of the lack of workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes,
Hi, my name is Kristen White. I'm a business owner of West Ashley White Key Studios. I work as a server downtown right now at 5 Church, and I have 2 kids. Right now, as a business owner, my husband and I are working 3 jobs to try and support our business in its first year of growth. When I come downtown, I don't really have the luxury of, like you said, going to a parking garage, because right now all I have is my time. So me getting shuttled to and from a parking garage, it takes time away from my family. It takes time that I don't have in coordinating 3 jobs and 2 kids and everything else. If I'm going to a parking garage late at night, I get off of work at 2 o'clock in the morning with a handful of cash that I'm walking by myself as a woman into a dark parking garage by myself. It's not safe. If I take somebody with me, my manager's now not on the floor because he has to walk us to our cars. It's not conducive. I do agree with having metered parking that is marked for certain hospitality workers that would allow, some people can use parking garages, some people have the ability to bike. I don't. Personally, my time is all I have. So that's it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
May I? Oh, I'm sorry.
And she's got a wonderful business, West Ashley, teaching kids music. That's
Jonathan
right.
Graham. I think Sarah Saunders was before me if she wants to come up. I don't. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thanks. My name is Sarah Saunders. I was born and raised in Charleston, and the fact that I choose to continue my life here is a testament to my love for this city. However, there have been numerous issues that have become more than mere inconveniences, which have me questioning whether Charleston is still the most viable city for me to base myself in. The proposed meter rate and time increase feel like the breaking point in a series of government decisions that have made my life in Charleston unreasonably expensive and increasingly inaccessible. Living in West Ashley, I bike to work as much as possible, but a lack of bike lanes make this an unsafe option, especially at nighttime. Bus routes and times also do not correlate with my food and bev schedule. I'm a cook at Brown Dog Deli, and my coworkers and my boss are like family, and I don't want to have to seek other employment because of a lack of transportation. I'm a graduate of College of Charleston. I've traveled around the world, but I continue coming back to Charleston because I love it. I dedicate my labor to and spend my money in this city year-round. You say it wasn't your intention, but this meter proposal feels like a direct affront to people like myself. Hospitality is the largest industry in this town. Please don't alienate the people that make that industry possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask y'all to refrain from outbursts like that? If someone wants to ask the crowd if you agree with their point of view, you can ask them to raise their hand. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Could I, before I begin my time, could I just inquire as to whether, I think that I got this in time. Did the council all get a copy of 40 pages of emails and 2,300 signatures plus? Perfect, very good. My name is Jonathan Graham. I am a hospitality professional. I live in Councilman Shealy's district, and I work here on the peninsula. As I think it is clear, we are not here today to complain, but rather we're here to ask you to listen. Listen to your servers, to your bartenders, to your busboys, to your barbers, to your small business owners, to your chefs, to your general managers. Listen to all of us when we tell you that this parking meter increase is going to affect us and our guests. But don't merely listen, please act. Make your priority finding a solution that works for everybody in this city. Leading a city well consists in doing good whenever possible, and if nothing else, doing no harm. This parking meter increase is bad for Charleston. This parking meter increase will harm our city. I've worked in food and beverage, in the food and beverage industry for 7 years. In the past 4 I've spent down here on the peninsula, and I have never worked with a more loyal industry than that on the peninsula. Work with us and you will have our loyalty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Austin Fitzgerald, Linda Raymond, Janet McKellar, Suzanne Buckley, and Lorinda Cruz.
Good afternoon, council members, Mr. Mayor. I very much appreciate, I'm Austin Fitzhenry. My family has lived here for 3 generations. I was born here and currently live on Johns Island. I very much appreciate the amount of thought that you gentlemen have put into this issue. It looks very good on paper, but I'd like to suggest that that's not what residents are actually experiencing on the ground when they're looking for parking in Charleston. Residents know where to look for parking, know where to look for meter parking after 6 p.m., and it's very easy for residents all times of day to find meter parking. This ratio that you talked about, sir, local people don't feel that ratio. Everybody can find meter parking when they need it. That's my experience, especially after 6 p.m. What I'm concerned about is that the negative economic impacts will be greater than the bits of change that the city gets from this policy. My friends in Mount Pleasant are already talking about going out to eat in Mount Pleasant instead of coming downtown. The people on the road are already angry about the new meters, and they're honking in support of keeping the meter rates as they are. They will be remembering that at the next election. Thank you.
My name is Janet McKellar, and I live in Bridgepoint, which is part of Shadow Moss. I moved in about 5 months before we flooded the first time, August 2015. My place was restored, and before I had a chance to move in, we flooded that 1,000-year flood, and I lost furniture, heirlooms, etc. We restored again, and we flooded a 3rd time. And then the following year, we flooded a 4th time. I suffer from anxiety. I'm under doctor's care right now. And we work forward with the city and thank the city for working with FEMA and allowing the HMGP grant to be approved, which means that they will buy 32 owners out of Bridgepoint, out of our homes, so we can move on with our lives. The hurricane season is approaching, and we have not heard from Tetra Tech, which is the city hired company. We ask for action.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Suzanne Buckley. I live at 202 in Bridgepoint. There are 32 stories at Bridgepoint. Here is one, mine. I bought my condo for $150,000. FEMA has paid me over $200,000 to restore this condo 4 times. We have been told by the city that we will not be bought out by July the 1st, 2018. We will. Probably, strong probability, we will flood again. Now, how much is it going to cost me, my fellow homeowners, and FEMA again? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Florence Cruz. I'm 308 Tulock, and my 2 preceding neighbors, all I have to say is I came down here 17 years ago with a dream, and that dream turned into a nightmare because my home was flooded 5 times. Please get this thing done for us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Katie Easterbrook, Shannon Hoffman, Angela Denira, T. Hayward Carter Jr., Carlos Baker.
Chad Hoffman. Thank you for this time this evening. I'd like to bring an issue with bidding of a job at Daniel Island to your attention. My business partner, Melanie Bookhart, is here. My name's Chad Hoffman. We own a licensed landscape architecture, grading construction, and minority business based out of Columbia, South Carolina. We recently submitted a bid and followed all the mandatory pre-bid qualifications for a job, and January 24th attended the bid meeting, followed by the rules, submitted everything by February 15th on time. The issue I have tonight is that there was a problem. We were awarded the job verbally, and then we were later acknowledged by email and phone calls that we were having the job revoked from us and being qualified as or listed as a non-responsive bidder. The outcome that we would like tonight is for the council to review this, and there is a difference of $27,130 to the next highest bidder that they're looking to award it, and I think that money could be used towards the biking and parking situation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Can we get his name one more time, Mr. Mayor?
We have his name.
Shannon Hoffman.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Good evening, folks. My name is Angela Jenna. I live at 608 Tulock Place in Bridgepoint, which is in Shadow Moss. I'm also a victim from the floods. I've lived through 5 floods. 4 of the 5 floods have been within a 2-year radius. We're at a point where some of us are ill from the mold and mildew, and we've got some elderly neighbors that have no place to go, so they stay there. We just hope and pray that y'all will consider our situation and help us get out of there before the next hurricane season hits. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Hayward Carter. I live on Highway 61 between Middleton and Magnolia Gardens in the Ashley River Historic District. My family has petitioned to come into the city of Charleston in order to try to stop our family property and other property adjacent to us, totaling over 5,000 acres, from being developed. Those annexation petitions are being heard by the city. We've asked for ordinances to cover this property, which are exactly like the county ordinances we are under now, and those ordinances and development agreements that go along with them are going to be considered tonight, and we ask for your vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Carlos Baker, Donna Perry, and Alison McLeod.
Passing, thank you.
I'm Donna Perry. I live in Bridgepoint Townhomes in Shadow Moss. I'll just add to what some of my other neighbors have said. The grant was awarded based on the 1,000-year flood. So we've had 2 floods while this grant was being approved. It would be ridiculous for us to have to go through another flood when we've got the grant and we just want to get out of there. We just want to be able to move on with our lives. So one point I'd like to make is these 32 homeowners plus the other ones, there's some other homes in Shadow Moss, are going to be moving probably to other areas in Charleston. So they might be your next constituent, you know. So their friends are going to hear about it, their family's going to hear about it. So think about that. If there's anything y'all can do to move this process along and get us out of there, we would be very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Alison McLeod and Maria Parker.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. I'm Alison McLeod. I'm on the HOA at Bridgepoint. We've worked really diligently with you, and we've been very appreciative of the help that you've given us to this point. But at this point, we're a little bit disappointed at the fact that this grant was approved 5 months ago, and all we're getting from Laura Cabanis is, well, we're doing the best we can. Tetra Tech is the company that has been granted the money to oversee this process, and they're being given a fair chunk of change to do so. And we're shocked and amazed and betrayed and feel quite upset about the fact that we still have not had a meeting with Tetra Tech when that was promised us 5 months ago at our community meeting by Laura Cabanis. We have absolutely no schedule, no timeline as to when things are supposed to start taking place. Essentially, the homes need to be appraised, and at that point, once the appraisal process is complete and we've been paid out, we would hope that we could get out of there before we flood again, or else the grant is a waste of money. We're just costing FEMA millions of dollars annually, $2 million annually. It's ridiculous.
Thank you, Allison. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, I'm Maria Parker. I'm a resident at 61 Lawrence Street. Recently, we had a sewage spill causing the closure of oyster beds in Charleston down to the Edisto River. Cruise ships can legally dump untreated sewage 3 miles from shore. And Carnival has been found guilty of falsifying these types of records. So when you consider the tourism management plan and the cruise ship limits that are in it, not only consider binding limits on the number of cruise ships in Charleston, but also something like having the state use this passenger fee that only the state is allowed to use and Charleston doesn't get any benefit from, for monitoring and enforcing dumping regulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Was there anyone else that signed up whose name wasn't called? All right. So thank you all for being on. You signed up. Please come forward, sir.
Can I pass this around to the council?
No, if you turn that into the clerk, we'll distribute it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. You signed up as well?
Yeah, to my knowledge, I did. Somebody wrote my name down on a list. Randolph Hill. I had the honor of singing the duet with Richie Cole on the night you gave him the key to the city. My points are 2 and simple. Number 1, on James Island, there is one bus that runs, one car to bus, every hour and 40 minutes. That is a problem. It effectively makes impossible the use of those buses, especially for people who have to transfer. And number 2, I would like to bring to your attention that the new meter system, as I understand it, that uses credit cards, does not enable the person who parks to recoup unused time. The smart card would enable you to put your card in when you return to get your card, and you'd get your money that was unused. As I understand it, the current credit card system does not do that.
It does, but you can use a regular Visa card, or you can go to 180 Foxwood and get a city smart card, which will return any unused time back to your card.
I'm glad to know that. The attendant that I talked to who was installing them told me that it was not yet possible, but I'm glad to hear it is. Thank you.
Take both kinds of cards. All right, thank you all for being with us, and thanks for your comments. We were listening, and we appreciate it. So we're going to move along to our section here on petitions and communications, and we've had a few requests from council members to talk about some various issues, and we might just give a minute to clear out here. Thank y'all. Thank you. Thank you, Mickey. See you.
Amy, thank you very much. Yeah, it was fine. Yeah. Oh, it was great. It was perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay, I got you. And was there okay. All right. All right, council, if we can come back to order. So the first item up for discussion was a request from Councilmember Griffin, update on homelessness and measures in terms of work opportunities. Gianna Johnson isn't with us tonight. Her department kind of manages that. She's in New York on a leadership training conference. So you got me.
Mr. Mayor, I was in council. Number one, I wanted you to give us an update on how it went Sunday night. Give us, am I not close enough? Is that better? Oh, it's on. I wanted you to give us an update on how it went Sunday night, and then I wanted to kind of parlay that discussion into, you know, I met with some homeless along around Marion Square, and the consensus was that they don't know where they can go to get sustainable jobs. And I would like to offer my services to meet with businesses, to put a list together that we can put around the city and at our shelters where these individuals can go to apply for jobs. And I know some businesses that are already incorporating those, but first and foremost, an update, please, on Sunday night, if you can.
Well, if I may say, Sunday night was a terrific event. It was a benefit concert for the Homeless to Hope Fund, which was created with an initial grant from City Council over 2 years ago when we were dealing with helping the individuals that were living at Tent City. And we originally raised about $150,000, and over the process of helping over 100 individuals, we spent most of the money helping them find apartments and pay deposits and get situated. So the fund had gone down, and the commission, the mayor's commission on homelessness, had decided to expand the scope or the purpose of the Homeless to Hope Fund. It was a little arcane or out of date that it be for Tent City residents since they were all gone. And so it's available to help anyone in the Charleston region. They don't even have to be in the city, who is being helped by a bona fide service provider if they can call, the Palmetto Project is a nonprofit group that manages the fund for us. And so, for example, if 180 Place had found an apartment for someone and needed a security deposit, they'd be able to contact the Palmetto Project and get some financial help to get this individual located. So anyway, we raised over $130,000 Sunday night, and I'm very excited about it. The musicians all donated their time, and Charlton Singleton was there, and Kiana Parler, and Heather Rice, and I got to tell you, the music was just great. I think everybody enjoyed it. We had an uplifting message about all the work that the Commission on Homelessness is doing and what their efforts are, their commitment to the Housing First model, which is when someone is experiencing homelessness, they often have other issues in their life to work on, but to get a roof over their heads is like first priority, and then wrap the job service and other things around them to try to help them move on in life. So I'm pleased to report to council, I guess the city's contribution to the effort was the free use of the Gilliard Sunday night, but we raised over $130,000, and we gave the first annual award that the commission created to Linda Kettner, who has done so much over the years to help both for homelessness and affordable housing. And I don't have a piano here, or I'd give you a encore performance of a couple of songs that I played, but anyway, you had to have been there for that.
Well, I just want to let you know that I stand with you to help end this epidemic, and love to help out with job creation other way. I don't know if anybody else has anything to say, but I really just wanted to get an update on how it went and how we can improve on it.
So that went well. Now talk about the workforce development opportunities that are out there. I admit they're limited. 180 Place does have its own workforce training for culinary arts. And I don't know if you saw the article in the paper week before last during the Wine Food Festival, a real success story of a former resident of 180 Place has a great job in a local restaurant, and he was trained at 180 Place. They have a commercial kitchen there. They prepare their own food in preparation for being able to get jobs. So that's that. There's a group called South Carolina Works, which does not have a program, but they're considering one to help homeless veterans. There's Goodwill, and they help anybody, including homeless individuals, in training for job placement. Now, the city of Charleston, in a similar fashion, and council members are familiar with our Turning Leaf program, where we hire individuals who were former offenders. They're not necessarily homeless, but they're without a job, so we help them. And in addition, there was one of these day labor businesses called IES, which stands for In Every Story, because they believe we all have a story. And so the city has pretty exclusively used that firm when we need day help, and that's led to jobs for about 15 individuals who ended up staying with the city after they had worked with us temporarily for a while. So the last one that I would mention to you is the Veterans Administration does have specific work programs for homeless veterans, and there's their own center is right in the parking lot next to United Way in the parking lot of North Charleston City Hall. So those are the organizations that I'm aware of that work in some kind of workforce development for homeless individuals. Councilmember Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just out of curiosity, are we experiencing it as a city a little bit of an uptick in this homeless situation? The reason I ask that is that I have called Team 4 in the last couple weeks, 2 or 3 occasions where it looks like homeless are living under the overpasses. There was one down actually across from the VA hospital parking lot there. There was 2 West Ashley. I've been downtown with my wife in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I've seen, you know, actually in this case it was females that were panhandling on the streets, and it just all of a sudden it just seems like there's something going on here. And I was just curious, is the police department getting more calls or more notices about this? I mean, is there something going on that we need to pay attention to?
Well, yes. And whether the numbers of homelessness has really increased, I can't say, but we should know pretty soon. The point-in-time count is normally done the last weekend in January. Last year in our region, the point-in-time count indicated about 430 individuals were living in homelessness. We don't have the numbers back from them from the count this year, but sometimes those counts are, you know, can vary based on the weather and other things. We have identified in the last year a little more specifics on youth homelessness. In fact, wonderful former principal of Stall High School opened a halfway house for homeless high school students, and I understand he's got about 20 individuals there. And then there's a new group called We Are Family that works with the College of Charleston, and they've identified a number of homeless College of Charleston students. So, you know, homelessness can happen to anyone, and you can be a paycheck away from being homeless, and that's why I played the song Rolling Stone the other day at the concert. But I lost my train of thought with that.
Go back to Rolling Stone.
Back to King Street. There have been, you know, businesses that have been reporting more panhandling on the street, and we've been looking at that, and frankly, you know, even though we're very compassionate as a city in helping those who want some empowerment to move on in life, and in fact, there are 2 things I plan to bring to council in the very near future. One is a $1 a year lease for a property up on Upper Meeting Street that we would open a day center for various nonprofits to be able to operate programs to help homeless individuals during the day, particularly those who might not be staying at 180 Place, because 180 Place ain't for everybody. So one of my partners, our partners could be Catholic Charities. I've met with the bishop a couple of times. They've opened centers in Columbia, Myrtle Beach, and they want to do a statewide network of doing this. And what you have is a daytime center where an individual could come. If he doesn't have a home, he could take a shower, he could get his laundry done, and network with or get referrals to the social agencies that could help him or her, you know, whatever his needs are. So I'm going to be bringing that to y'all, I believe, at the next real estate committee meeting. And then in addition to that, I've had our legal staff look at other ordinances around the country where panhandling has been occurring, and understand from what I've been learning recently is that some of these panhandlers aren't necessarily homeless individuals. They're in the business of panhandling, and so we do plan to bring a ordinance to City Council at our next meeting that will give the police another tool to be able to deal with that. Yes, sir. Thought it might have been. Anything else on this topic? We good, Harry? All right. So the next topic was requested by Councilmember Seekings. No. Again, Councilmember Griffin on a discussion and update of flooding issues. And Bob Horner is here with us, but Harry, if you don't mind giving us an entree.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I requested this item be on the agenda because of the severity of the issue and the fact that it was deemed by Mr. Mayor as the #1 problem that we needed to be resolved in the State of the City address. In the next few minutes, I'm going to flash you back to the timeline of events. Some happened before Councilman Shealing, myself, and Councilwoman Jackson were sworn in, some a little more recently. Back in February 2017, we unanimously approved a 9-month moratorium on the 100-year floodplain inside the basin. Soon after that moratorium began, unanimously approved a contract to do a comprehensive study on the basin. Wesson and Sampson produced a report, and there was a public meeting. There was a meeting in City Council and then a public meeting over at West Ashley High School back in November. As an engineering firm completed the study, FEMA approved the purchase of units in Shadow Moss. At that time, timeline was put in place for a buyout process. Specifically, citizens of Bridgepoint were told their buyouts would be completed by the end of July in 2018. And in December, our 2018 budget was passed, and the millage for stormwater operations was increased by 2 mills. This was reflected in our City of Charleston master plan and our stormwater plans. Also, new positions were created in our departments. We need to find out if these positions have been filled or whether we're still searching for candidates. Just last week, we had an email go out to Bridgepoint about the buyout process and that the timeline may have changed, so we need to get an update on that. Let's see what else. The reason that I brought this up tonight is because only a few short weeks ago, we had a conversation about why we were extending the moratorium. And I said that, obviously we're extending it to make sure that we have implementation. Well, we're running out of time here, and we need to make sure that we are going to have implementation at the end of this moratorium, because we can't keep stalling growth. We can't keep kicking the can down the road. We've got to fight to get to the implementation process. And with that, I've put together a list of questions that hopefully we can get answered by Laura Cabness, Bob Horner, and our planning department. So, first question. I just found out this answer in our Public Works meeting, but it's good that the public understands this as well. When will the Church Creek Basin report be made available to council and constituents? Bob?
Thank you. That report has been posted to the internet on the project website. It's churchcreekbasinstudy.com. That was just recently done. The report was being reviewed and comments were being made on up until that time. So it's available to the public now.
Okay, and let's see what else. With the budget, have we filled the created positions in public services? Laura?
So the floodplain manager position, we have filled that position. It's an internal, and they're transferring over in about 4 weeks.
Do we have any other positions?
We've...
Ditch guys, maybe?
The three, we approved 3 positions for cleaning out the ditches and that kind of stuff. Have those been filled? Or?
I'll have to get back to you on that one. I know we're constantly filling positions down there, but I'll have to check.
Well, we've gone up by 3.
Right, right. I'll get that back for you.
Okay.
We have also just recently completed interviews for the Deputy Director of Operations, and I'll be able to make an offer probably tomorrow to an individual.
And that is to fill Mr. Metzner's position?
That's
right?
Correct.
And he's still been around a little bit, right? Or
he was, but he at the end of February was the end of his time.
Okay, next question. The FEMA buyout timeline. Is July 31st still plausible, or how are we looking?
Well, we will do everything. I understand these folks' issues and their anxieties, and I've been working with them for a long time, and we are doing everything we can to try to expedite this process. So where we can make those, where we can expedite it and where we can overlap activities, we're working to do that. I've got Mark Wilbert's working with me now. The new floodplain manager will help us work on that. And as far as Tetra Tech goes, we just approved their contract because we had to do some due diligence. It wasn't a lot of money on that contract to just blanketly say, here it is, we're just going to approve it. So it took a little bit of time to get it through. But the next step is a kickoff meeting with Tetra Tech and staff involved, because there's going to be some folks that have been helping us along, but we need help from procurement, we need help from legal, we need help from real estate, making sure we're using the right title folks, attorneys for closing and that stuff. So that's scheduled to be in the next couple of weeks. And shortly after that, Tetra Tech will be able to begin communicating with the individuals included in the grant and provide more information about the steps. Now, everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different, although Bridgepoint, we should get, I mean, that should go pretty quick because we've got 32 units that are very similar there that, you know, the appraiser should be able to do that stuff pretty quickly. And if we can get some shortcuts there, that'll be really good. But everybody's time is going to take a little bit different. The contract extends all the way to early 2019, but understand also that a lot of that is the work that takes place after we close on the apartments or on the units and the homes. That's the part where we have to demolish everything, return everything to green space. So looking at that length of the contract, that isn't how long it's going to take us necessarily to buy everybody out. That's how long it's going to take us to finish it and finish submitting all of the documentation and assurances that we have to FEMA to show that we've complied with the grant.
Has there been, I've just got a couple more if y'all don't.
I wanted to ask about that.
Councilmember Moody.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, is there any, do these things, Laura, have to be in some kind of sequence? Can we, you know, go ahead and start the appraisal process? Can we hire an appraisal to start doing that? Maybe speed up? Is there some way we can?
You're right. That's what we're trying to do, right.
Okay. I mean, that would be my.
So we, you know, if we can get multiple steps going on at the same time, we can be doing title work and appraisals at the same time. We don't have to do them in sequence.
But I think the real key here is to get these people out of these homes. The destruction, the demolition, and that can happen if
right.
we get these people out.
Right.
We got people there with 2 mortgages, and you know, that's the real personal or human
right.
side of this thing. Is you got people on fixed incomes that got 2 mortgages, and they just can't make ends meet. And we need to do everything we can to shove that process quicker.
My next question is, has there been any discussion about us buying a piece of property as a city in terms of that pumping station? Because I know we've looked at a couple of different places as a potential spot for it. Do we have kind of an update? That's the biggest piece of this pie, you know, $27 million. Do we have any sort of idea about the location and where we want to put it, or any sort of internal discussion along those lines?
Only in a very general way. We've got to proceed to the next step of engineering to figure out how big a site you would need and where's the most optimal place to put that. Do you want to add anything to that? Where the pump station would discharge to and those kinds of things. So it's just very general at this point. No, that has to do with the Weston and Sampson study and the recommendations that came out of the report.
And then can we, maybe Bob and Laura, talk about the Church Creek Basin committees? I know that we've talked about 2 committees and the timeline of events as we work towards implementation.
Yes, thank you. In regards to that, there's a committee that has been formed that's internal within the city. That committee is chaired by Mark Wilbert, the resilience director for the city. The committee is looking at a lot of different things that need to be implemented prior to the end of the moratorium. I've got an outline of our schedule here that kind of hits the highlights of those. Take one and pass it down, please. But this committee was initially charged with taking the policy recommendations that were in the study and turning those into formal policies that could be integrated into the city's stormwater program. The committee is also charged with establishing the Church Creek Advisory Committee, which will be made up of not only members of the city staff, but property owners, residents, developers, and their engineers that are affected by the issues that are going to take place and are taking place in the Church Creek Basin as well. The policies that are going to be recommended, integrating those into the city's stormwater plan, stormwater program, and development policies. We're going through a review of the policies now to make sure they're consistent, make sure there are no overlaps and that kind of thing once the policies are recommended, make sure they have the desired outcome once they're implemented.
Can we get that put on our city website and maybe that Church Creek Basin site?
Sure.
So that we can put it out to constituents, just what the committee, and I know it's an internal committee, but what that timeline of events looks like, and the fact that we're working towards an external committee as well. That's something good that we can put out there for people to show that we're working towards getting towards implementation, and that's what the whole point of this moratorium was, to implement the end of the flooding, and we've got to show them that we're actively working towards that.
Yeah, we can put this schedule on the website as well.
Anybody else? Councilmember Shealy.
I had the opportunity this week to meet with some people. Thank y'all for letting me represent at the National League of Cities this week up in Washington, D.C. But while I was there, I tried everything I could to tell our Church Creek story there. In fact, Councilman Lewis and I sat with the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency people, their flooding people or stormwater people. We spoke with FEMA people and the National League of Cities. They're all very willing to help us. When I tell this story, they're very interested in helping us and lending a hand. I found out that there's a new NOAA grant. I had no idea that there was a NOAA grant, but that may help us. But one common question that kept coming up when I was talking to these people is, who's your grant writer? How do we get in touch with them? What's the answer there? Because I didn't know.
And in the budget,
we have a new grant writer for the city.
Well, we have a position. We just haven't hired that position yet. Yeah. So it'll be advertised probably in the next couple weeks.
Okay. Well, just know that we can reach out to the National League of Cities, the EPA, and obviously we have our contact that's helping us through FEMA already. But everybody was very, very willing, but they wanted to speak with our grant writer. So when we have that, they want to speak to them. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Waring.
I want to thank you and certainly Councilman Griffin for even bringing this subject to council. And I want to thank the ladies from Bridgeport Point for coming out and sharing their stories, because that's the real aspect that, frankly, we don't hear. Having to buy another house and having 2 payments going on, and hoping you can find a house that you can afford, that when you get the revenue from selling your home. Ms. Cabanis, the appraisal process and the title search, I know we're going to try to do that on a dual basis. Is that something we have control on, saying ready, set, go, or we have to get some approval from FEMA before ready, set, go takes place?
That's a question that we have right now, is whether we have to actually go out with a solicitation for those services, or whether we can use the attorneys and the appraisers that we already use at the city. So we're going to be answering that question within the next day or so, and then proceed. Obviously, if we can use the folks that we already work with, that's going to shorten that up.
Thank you, Mr. Horner. The piece of land that we're going to need, the parcel of land that we're going to need to purchase for the pump station, about what size property we need? Is it 1 acre, 2 acres, a half an acre? Help us out with that.
The exact size we really haven't defined yet, but it would probably be in the order of maybe around 5 acres.
Thank you.
Councilman Moody.
Laura, before you sit down, could you give us an update on, I know when we passed our stormwater budget in December, one of the things we were going to do was upgrade our master drainage plan that hadn't been updated since 84, 86. And you told me then, I think, that you had already started that process of putting together an RFQ what is the status of that? Are we about to hire somebody, an engineering firm or whatever?
We're about to begin the selection process. We're ready to probably, I was hoping to be ready to advertise before I left. I don't know that that's going to happen, so certainly right after I get back. But the work to develop the scope of work has been done, and we've consulted with similar type firms and other jurisdictions that have done this kind of work. So we think we've got a good scope of work, and then we've just got to get it advertised and follow our procurement process.
What's your estimate then of the timeline on getting that done? Because to me, I haven't been bugging you because I've been waiting on that, but I need to start bugging you maybe. So I guess I need to mark my calendar when I can start bugging you.
How about June? Bug me at
that seems like
the middle of June.
That seems like a long time to me, but
well, you got our procurement process. We've got to advertise this for 30 days in the South Carolina Business Opportunities and other papers. Once we get the advertisement, we got to get the RFQ in. We have to have a selection committee set up. So, and then we have to, once the selection's made, we've got to negotiate the scope. So it takes several months for us to follow our procurement policy, and in light that this is going to be a long-term relationship with somebody, it's important that we invest the time up front to get it right.
I understand that, but I mean, our drainage downtown, our drainage in Church Creek, to me, everything's kind of waiting on that.
Well, I mean, the projects that we've got ongoing, they're still going.
Moving.
They're moving ahead. Adding new projects, and I would say Church Creek is not stalled right now. It's keeping moving, but we just haven't gotten to that point where we're ready to. This is what we can do to add new projects.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lewis, Shade, and Jackson.
Just one question. Where are we with the UG King Street project, drainage project?
We submitted an HMGP grant for that project. I'm not sure that it's going to be successful. And really, when we get this program manager in there, we'll get full bore ahead on UG. But that is the next priority project downtown. I'm pretty certain.
Well, I
am certain.
I thought that we identified funds from the TIF to do that project.
To do the design.
Right, to do the design, right.
Are you working on the design?
Well, we're going to have to, again, we got to go through the selection process and hire an engineer to start engineering the project.
Councilmember Shade and then Jackson.
Just for clarification, excuse me, in the interim between now and when these properties are purchased with the FEMA grant money, in the unlikely event of another storm, another flooding, is FEMA off the hook to those folks, or are they still responsible for the repairs if necessary?
They've still got flood insurance contract or policies, as long as they haven't dropped their policy.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes, I just thought that since we're putting a lot of this on the record, Ms. Cabinets, that it would be great to have the update on studies and work that's going to be done on James Island in the coming months too. So the study timeline and the Signal Point Road.
So we have a meeting scheduled with the town of James Island and the county on Wednesday afternoon to talk about that.
Back to Mitchell, then Waring.
It's going to be very short. I understand that you're working on a lot with the flooding, but even in the peninsula, as where I live on the Eugene King, which was flooding for 100 years, I believe. But the thing is that, you know, we're doing a lot of things here now in the city of Charleston, and a lot of people are going to be losing their homes in the city of Charleston, not because of the flood, but because of what FEMA is going to raise their flood insurance to. I got a letter, I think Moody said he did this the other day. A lot of these seniors, a lot of these people are going to have to do elevation, and they're not going to be able to afford it. And the flood insurance is going up, what is 5 or 10% every year, 5%, whatever they tell us. Well, they say in a letter says how much is going up, but it's going up to what your house is worth. I mean, not what the mortgage company wants anymore. They say you're not even thinking about the mortgage company, what the mortgage company requires. So if your house is valued at $600,000 or $500,000, your flood insurance will go up to that level because you live in that flood area or that flood hazard area. People are not going to be able to afford it, because I'm going to have to do it also. And I'm right there, and like I said, I've been there 33 years, but so many other people was there longer than I was on King and Hughie Street, Ashley Avenue, President Street, and we're going to be pushing them out right now because of the flood, because we are waiting. We have to get these things done. I know, and we have to go through, jump through the hoops, the process. But in essence, what's going to happen to these people? I might have to move myself too. So this is the things that I'm worrying about now. Right. Even though with that's going on, a lot of people are going to be have to move out of their home.
I hope that won't be the case. Councilmember Waring.
Yeah, I'm going to add on that because my colleague to my right, Councilman Dudley Gregory, just boldly said that you're not going anywhere, so you don't have to worry about that. That's right. Ms. Cabinet, now I know you told us this in the meeting, so I'm not grandstanding, and I know you have a plan to roll out a letter to catch up the residents who are going to be hopefully getting a buyout from this grant. Could you go over the timeline so the people here could go back and tell their friends and neighbors at Bridgepoint when they can expect to get a letter from our engineering department, catching them up on the timeline and probable hopeful predictions of July 31st and beyond?
Okay, so early on, I probably was overly optimistic about some of these timelines, so I'm reluctant to make it optimistic. But I think if we have the staff meeting, that could happen by the end of April, and hopefully a lot sooner than that.
All right, thank you.
I just got one more thing to add, and then that'll be it for me. Just a fact real quick off of our city website about the kind of what we're up against in Church Creek. Since they started, Church Creek has its own section on our city website, and they put a little history of the Church Creek Basin and all the neighborhoods in it. Since we started that, on drainage fixtures and studies, we've spent $3,671,000, and now we've got to come up with $44 million. So more, at least. But that's just what we're up against. We've only ever put in $3.5 million into it, and now we've got to come up with 44. So we're up against a big challenge, but we have to have regular updates on this stuff. And we can't sweep it under the rug, because as soon as we start forgetting about it, then we're going to be, hurricane season's right around the corner. So that's all I got to say. Thanks.
Well, I would like to address that as chair of the Public Works Committee. We've asked for that to be a stand-in report on the Public Works Committee, so it won't be forgotten.
Thank you, sir. And I would just respond to Councilmember Shealy that don't wait for us to hire the new grants coordinator to pass along any information. And I'll give you all an example. I went to Washington when I went to U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting. I went around all our legislative offices and let them know we were interested in funding for anything related to flooding and drainage that could be helpful, because we're working up projects. And in fact, Congressman Sanford's office contacted us when there's an allocation of money coming forward for the Corps of Engineers for shoreline protection, and Mark Wilbert went back up to Washington and met with them and presented a potential project to protect the shoreline of the peninsula of Charleston. And so we think it might qualify for some future funding from the Corps of Engineers. So we are following every lead that we can get. If you get one, let us know. Okay. So we're good on that. Next, we had a request from Councilmember Seekings to have an update on the tourism management plan, and Dan Riccio is here to respond. And so,
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Seekings, you're on.
Thank you, and thank you, fellow colleagues, for giving me 5 or 10 minutes here. For those of you who are recent on council, in 2015, this council passed unanimously the tourism management plan. It was a good year for you, Mayor. You got elected, and it was a good year for us with Councilmember Waring sitting on that committee. We passed the tourism management plan. It passed under this council by a vote of 13-0. It gave us a lot of things. One was it gave us Dan Riccio and his team, and Dan have been charged with the implementation of the tourism management plan, but not all of it, not all of it. There's some parts of the tourism management plan that are not part of his purview, and he doesn't have any hand in. He's done an excellent job with what he's been charged to do. There's other parts of it, and given what Councilmember Griffin has brought up tonight, the enormity of the projects we have, I wanted to put this on an agenda because for the first time ever, we're going to, and I think Ms. Wharton, it's going to be sometime sooner rather than later, have a budget committee meeting. And we're going to be thinking about the budgeting process going forward in the city of Charleston, not just for 2019, but long beyond, because a lot of what we have to do are long stretch, long reach, long thought, long finance projects. And so we need all the help we can get. Well, the good news is there are some things, believe it or not, in our tourism management plan to give us the tools long range to do some of those things. And I want to talk about one of them tonight. This won't be long, but I think it's time that we have this conversation because we haven't had it in a long time. So as you all know, I should have blown this up, but the Tourism Advisory Committee was there to develop objectives and recommendations that address the goal of maintaining the critical and delicate balance between Charleston's residential quality of life and the tourism economy while preserving Charleston's authenticity. That was what the Tourism Committee did. It's its vision statement. It's what our vision statement in the city is. It's what we need to be doing every day, and we're doing it. So one of the aspects of the recommendations, again, that came to us, and we voted on them 13-0 under quality of life, which is at the very core of the tourism management plan, is maintaining quality of life, is a simple page, and there's two things on that page I want to talk about. One is evaluate the possibility of remote passenger parking to reduce congestion on the cruise ship business. And we've heard a lot tonight about parking. We've heard from people who say an extra $1 on a meter is going to put them out of business. And you'll see in a second the metrics of all this, particularly in the industry that's going on right now, shows why parking and this issue is big and big for us, and it's an economic opportunity. But the second and most important thing is what I want to talk about tonight and show you all some numbers, is that this council charged this city, and really charged ourselves, Mr. Mayor, to go and study the possibility of defraying the costs of many things in the city issues, by assessing a head tax on the cruise passengers. We're now in 2018, and I want to just show you where we are and how out of balance we are on this, and why now is the time that we need to meet this objective if we're going to address the long-term budgetary problems that we've got in terms of capital improvements. So here we go. We started, as you all recall, the cruise industry and Carnival Cruise Lines came to Charleston in 2009. It started with the Carnival Fantasy, which held about 2,200 people. We upgraded to the Carnival Ecstasy, a few more people, a little bit bigger. And if you've been paying attention and reading the paper, we're about to get a newer ship. I forget the name of this one. Carrie, help me. Thank you. The Sunshine. My eyeglasses aren't working so well tonight. The Sunshine is coming to us in 2018. So this has been going on now for 10 years. The industry has been sitting here right at the end of the market as we've been doing our drainage projects and everything else we've been doing in terms of capital improvements. And let's see what it's done for us and our economy. So in 2018, the Carnival business at the end of Market Street is going to do 104 embark debarks. Means it's going to twice a week take people away from Charleston for a certain period of time and bring them back. It is not a ship that's bringing people here and staying for a while. Its whole mission is to take people away. They got to get on that ship. They use our services, they use our roads, they use our sidewalks. We got to put electricity to our traffic lights. Got to do a lot of stuff, right? Police officers, all that stuff. Once this ship is up and running, the capacity is actually 3,004 passengers. 3,004. So 184 turns a year, 3,000 people. And this is me talking. I don't have any reason to know this specifically because we're not privy to it, but I figured all in, every passenger, when it's all said and done on a 5-day trip, away back to Charleston, woohoo, is about $1,000 a person. It may be a little bit less, but let's just, for purposes of math, say it's $1,000 a person. That might be a little high, but probably not that high. It's probably about right. So let's, pardon me? Yeah, right, just all in. Once they bought their ticket, they've done everything, they've come here, they've eaten, they've drank, they've had a big time. And they come back and they go away. That equates to $312 million of business that's being done at the end of Market Street every single year, and that's going to continue. That's a big business. I don't know of any other single business in the city, save maybe Roper, MUC, but no single business that's in the tax scrolls that's doing $312 million of business that we don't do a few things. Give them a bit, ask them to pay a business license fee, ask them to sit on some boards, maybe the Gibbs, give charitably, all that stuff. From this $312 million, we in the city, direct revenues, we get none. We don't get any direct revenues. That's why the tourism management team got together and said, we need balance here, business equity. It's just not equitable to allow someone to have someone at the end of your street going east-west to the heart of your downtown doing $312 million of business a year and paying nothing back directly to us when we are there to provide all of the services. Last time I checked, electricity wasn't free, and I think it's getting more expensive. So let's just look at the math here. And this again goes back to the recommendations from the tourism management plan that we adopted 13-0 to assess a head tax. Seems simple. Maybe it's not as simple as we all thought, but I'm going to get Mr. Mayor about the conversations we had last night in a second. But just let's do some math here. 3,000 people per trip, boom. They're going 104 times a year, embark and debark. Let's say we can assess what's reasonable, $25 a head. That seems like a pretty reasonable number to me. Maybe you like less, maybe, I don't know. $25 a head is what I was thinking about, okay? The math on that comes out to $7.8 million a year in revenue generated for the city from a business that's clearly doing business in our city and using our services. So let's put this in perspective for a second, and I'm going to say a couple things, I'm going to be quiet, but let's put this in perspective for a second. Here's a chart of tourism-related revenues in the city for the last 4 years, of which we all know what they are. But if you look across the lines, the hospitality fee, we generate about $15 million total. That's from every restaurant in the entire city, $15 million. The municipal accommodations tax, $6 billion. 7 almost in 2017. I think we budgeted a little bit more, didn't we, Ms. Wharton, for 2018? But the state accommodations tax, $6 million. The county accommodations tax, $1.5 million, and then we get the tourism ticket fee. So all in is $30 million, but each one of those line items, the only one that's greater than what we could be generating in revenue if we figured out a way to tap at the source, the cruise industry, is hospitality fee. We're losing a huge generation of revenue to address the issues that we've got, from affordable housing to drainage to, we heard tonight someone talk about parking, pollution. We've got many things that people expect us to pay, and it is very difficult, particularly when we heard from the tourists, from the hospitality people tonight, they're screaming about $1 raise because we don't have enough parking for them, we don't have enough transportation for them. How we let someone sit out there without raising this revenue really, in some ways, is about the most inequitable thing. So I bring this up tonight because of this. There's some question, and I don't know the answer to this, how we do exactly what the tourism management plan has suggested. But nothing is not the answer. We must take some charge of doing this. The mayor's gone up and gotten the legislature to talk about the accommodations fees and the manner in which we mete out the accommodations fees so we can go to capital projects. Our budget and capital projects budgets are not great. So we were at a meeting last night. The mayor was there, he led the charge, it was great. The mayor was there, we had Representative Cogswell there, Senator Campson was there, Councilmember Schwiers was there, and we were talking about capital projects and specifically drainage. And the gap between our budgeting process and how we raise fees in the city through property taxes, business license fees, and parking, and how we're going to come up with $1 billion or $2 billion to take care of our capital needs. We have to look at every source of revenue. We have a recommendation that this council adopted 2.5 years ago to go take a look at this. We need, as a group, to figure out a way to adopt and implement, not adopt, implement the recommendations that we voted on, to figure out a way to tap into, on a fair basis, on an equitable basis, someone who's doing business at to the tune of $300 million a year at the end of our street. And so I bring this up tonight because we're going to be thinking about budgeting. I talked to Mr. Riccio. I told him this is what I was going to talk about. If y'all, he knows everything about tourism, but this is not his charge. This is ours. This is we own this. The state legislature really owns this. And Representative Cogswell last night said he was behind this. He said he thought he could get it through the House. He thought the Senate would kill it. Representative Campson agreed with that, but we've got to try. And Mayor, I think everyone around this table, me in particular, I'm ready to go sit down with the SBA, whoever else, we got to let them know that we need their help on all this. We can't just let that business go. Use our services, take advantage of everything we've got in the city, create all the issues that have come along, and pay zero. So that is sort of my pitch for you all tonight, and I'm hoping this will be a conversation that we just don't forget about after tonight. We got to go deal with this. We got to go deal with it. Thank you.
Councilmember Griffin, Moody, and Jackson, all in a row.
Councilman Seekings, when y'all adopted this, and I'm sure you did a lot of research into this, have other states, are other states doing a head tax? And part two of that is, do you know, has anybody ever approached Carnival about doing it and that sort of, just wondering how they would take that if we approached them on that.
So it's good questions. Because the Carnival cruise ships tie up to the State Ports Authority property, they don't technically touch the city of Charleston. So it's the State Ports Authority that regulates and collects whatever they collect, from bunkering fees to whatever it is. They eventually, the passengers and the employees have to pass through and come to the city, but there are plenty of places that charge a head tax, but there are places that can go from dock to ship. We have a little bit of a buffer in between. Your second question was, has anyone talked to Carnival? Good luck with that. They're based in Panama. They do have an office in Miami. They've got some representatives here, but Carnival will not voluntarily play in this arena. We're going to have to get help, but it's got to start here. The will's got to be here. And look, the fact is, in 2009, it was a different Charleston out there when this came up. There was a huge debate about cruise ships and whether we should do anything with them except let them go and bring in lots of money and business. Well, now we know 10 years later, they're bringing in lots of money and business for themselves and using the services, and we've got real needs that we have to tap into. It's just a different debate. We wouldn't have probably had this conversation 10 years ago. It was sort of a hands-off policy. Now I think, based on what we've got, now it's a hands-on policy. And Mr. Mayor, I bring this up because we need your help. We need everyone on this table's help. We need the community's help to say, we need this to change. This is not right for us. So.
Councilmember Moody, then Jackson, then Shade.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of looking at this too, and I didn't know what you were going to say tonight, but I just want to address a couple things from my experience. You're exactly right. This is a state property, and so anything we do, it's got to come from the state legislature. I mean, we're just beating our heads against the wall otherwise. You know, doing business and providing services, that's really, you know, zero. That's really not an accurate statement. I mean, I realize we get no fee out of that, but quite frankly, when those people come in, they drive into the port, they park on port property, they pay port property for that parking, and they get on board the ship. Now, that's just in and out, but some of them come and they stay in our hotels. They provide that business. They eat in our restaurants. They stay for a couple days. They do pay for some of this. So I think your statement, although I would love to get something out of this, I'm not sure exactly that I would use those words, because I think we have to bring in police officers to direct the traffic. They pay for those police officers. Those are not, they're city officers, but they're off duty, and so they have to pay for that. That's not services that we're presenting or giving to the port. I mean, every time that ship comes in there's a lot of longshoreman jobs at risk, that people that go down there and move that luggage, move the food in and out. I mean, there's a lot of good paying jobs that every time that ship comes in, they provide a service. So I'm just telling you, that's what you're going to be up against. It's not going to be easy, I guess is what I'm cautioning you. But when you start at zero, you kind of lose me, because I know there are a lot of stuff that's being done, and that ship itself is not costing the city a lot. Now, as a source of revenue to fix drainage and stuff like that, I'm all for it. We need other revenues, but I wouldn't approach it in that respect, because I mean, there's too many good jobs, and I don't know as a municipality, we can assert ourselves on state property. So I'm just...
Jackson, then Shade, then Gregory.
Yeah, I appreciate Mr. Griffin's question because I had the same in terms of what we're actually looking at for a process to go from A to Z to get this in our coffers. I promise you, as a new on the council and having spent more time as a citizen and trying to follow along with the business of the council, I honestly thought that this was already teed up to be coming to the city. So I do promise you that if I thought in trying to follow along with the business of the council the last 2 years before I was elected, everyone else in the region thinks this is already true. So I do think we would have the community support. I don't think we would have to go very far to find people who would advocate at the state level. And I respect Mr. Moody's opinion. Obviously, we don't want to hurt what isn't broken. We don't want to endanger jobs or the industry. But to be honest, everyone else is getting their piece of this pie. And I think that the city puts together the infrastructure and the experience, and the reason that these cruise ships are beefing up their number of embark and debark, as you say, is because Charleston is the backbone of why they're coming here. So I do support you, Mr. Seekins, and I personally would go with you to the delegation, and I do think we could drum up a lot of support from citizenry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the comments that we've shared already this evening. I go down there and watch the folks come in and off this ship. I just time it that way on a Friday morning usually, or Thursday morning. So these folks, the majority of them, Mr. Moody's right, a good number of people maybe spend the night or go to a restaurant or something along those lines, and there are a lot of good paying jobs that are being generated from the presence of these ships. But the impact on these ships into the city is something we just can't overlook. When they come here, streets are blocked off. The police block these ingress and egress streets, particularly around Concord Street. So it has a huge impact on traffic flow, which has a huge impact on our other visitors here. It has a huge impact on us, the residents who work in downtown. So it does have a big impact on what happens into the peninsula part of the city. We're not getting our fair shake out of this. That's sort of, I think, an issue we need to be addressing. So they pay a fee. When these boats pull up to a dock, they pay a fee to the state. And we're not getting a cut out of that. And I think that's sort of what the issue is that we need to figure out a way to maneuver with the state as to how we're getting a piece of that pie. I mean, certainly they're using state and federal roads. When they travel on Interstate 26 or Highway 17 or Highway 61 or whatever way they're coming into town. But there still is an increase, and that increase has an impact on the overall quality of life into the city. So it does have a negative impact in that regard. But I think maybe the easy way of doing this is just to tag onto and bootstrap ourselves to what the state is charging them, what the State Ports Authority is charging them as a surtax, I guess, of some sort, or fee, to how they're doing that. Because whatever they're charging to pull up to that dock, we can tag along with it. If it's $25 or $10 a head, it's going to have a huge impact on what we do with this thing. Huge impact. Just one other question before I leave that, Mr. Mayor, and it's been a while since I took a cruise many years ago, but when you buy a ticket on a cruise ship, you're not paying a sales tax, if I understand that correctly. I mean, you going online and you booking that cabin, and you transact that with your credit card or whatever the ways you're doing it, but you're not paying a sales tax. So this is a transaction that is not being completely, I hate to use that word, taxed, but it's not being taxed. I mean, if we sold a mug or a Coca-Cola, you tax that transaction, whatever that may be. But here's a transaction that's occurring in someone's living room in Somerville or in Columbia or Nashville, North Carolina, to this cruise line that's not being taxed. They're not paying a tax on that. And so they're getting, the cruise ship is making a huge profit and not paying into their portion of government entities as to how it's impacting our community. So I think we just need to address this somehow, because they're getting a windfall and we're getting the bill. That's the problem with the whole thing.
Sounds like deja vu to me. Been here, especially for the new folks. The first thing I would do is advise you to get a copy of the memorandum of agreement between the city and the Ports Authority, just so you be up to date if you haven't already. You know, I totally respect what Councilman Seekings is pushing, but perhaps his ice is colder than my ice. Because back in, and why I say that is that this argument has been on this table before, and at length. There was even a recommendation to ask the city to go forward to the legislation to see whether or not we can get a head tax. This body voted that down. So this is not a new issue. In 2007, in the Preservation Handbook, just as we have in the Tourism Management Handbook, there was a recommendation in 2007 that we go forward with a head tax. So none of this is new at all. The arguments that Councilman Moody made were the arguments that were put on the table before, and of course, my recommendation lost as a result of that argument. At that time, there was a discussion that the cruise ship industry is bringing in $35 million to the city based on some of the things that you just highlighted, Councilman Moody. While I'm for it, I'm still for it, but unless we can get the Ports Authority, CEO, Mr. Newsom on board, it's dead in the water. I would support any way that we can get additional revenue to the city. When Councilman Wilson and I put forth our plan for identifying additional revenue, that was one of the items. And of course, some of the other items are already being implemented by the city. So I would support whatever we can do to move this forward, but it is definitely an uphill fight. Been here, done this before. It's deja vu, but if you know someone that can get it where we want it to go, we'll be fine. This was also an issue that was in the middle of a mayoral election, folks. This is not a new issue. Okay, so again, we've got to be very careful. We've got to be prudent. We've got to really strategize and see whether or not this is something we're ready to take on. I am. I've been ready to take it on since 2007, 2008. And if council is changed, fine with me. Let's go forward.
I'm going to kind of echo what I just heard, because back in 2011, when we were all running, or half of us were running, 3 of us became new members that year. Part of the debate, questions, was all about cruise ships. That's when they first decided the 102 came into being. But the big argument was it's going to bring jobs to the city of Charleston. And apparently it has. Now, for the head tax, I'm up for $100 a head myself. We'll do it like we do the sales tax. They get 6%, we get 4%. My math says that's $12.5 million. I like mine better than yours, Mike. But that's, I think we need to, like Mike says, it has changed in the 6 years I've been here. The cruise industry, it's no longer causing sit on everybody's porch downtown. I haven't heard that in about 5 years.
You know, the world has changed in the last 6 years. Hey, let's take it, run it up the flagpole. I mean, I think it's a good idea to give it a shot at least. Thanks.
Just very briefly, again, Councilman Gregory said, been there, done that, and this is a replay for us who've been on council, and it was a very, very lengthy debate. That ultimately we found at every discussion and debate and turn, it was just sort of, you know, we didn't have at the municipal level, city level, purview over the things that we wanted to have purview over. And so unfortunately, you know, just because we wanted to do something, the state said, well, you don't have the authority to do it. So I would contend that this body, unless something has changed, still probably doesn't have the capabilities to do that. So I think that as opposed to us trying to affect things that we can't affect, we need to be working with the state legislature to ask them to affect the things that they can then have purview over to affect. The second thing I'll point out, that back when this debate was occurring, there was supposedly about $5 million going to get earmarked towards shore power at the state level. Anybody ever seen a check written? So my point is this: if this body is going to take the issue up, we got to remember what we have purview over and what we don't have purview over. And we have to make sure that whatever we decide we want to do, that we actually can do and we can affect change. But it starts and ends at the state level, not at the city level. So if we can't get the state legislature to get on board with making change, whether it be a head tax or otherwise, and even simply coming up with the $5 million that they earmarked towards shore power and still yet have not done, I'm not sure how we're going to make any more effective change moving forward on this. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate all of the wisdom that has gone before us, and I know, I mean, I've known Charleston over the years, not as a resident, but as a person that worked in the industry that was helping the preservationists and the community development community. So I know that this cruise ship thing has been a theme. I do think that Mr. Seekins was making a good case tonight that timing is everything. And in 2007, we were at the beginning of the worst recession we've all lived through. 2011, we were still climbing out of it. So I think now we have the proof that the jobs are here. We've broadened our base. Yes, tourism is still a major force in our economy, but it is not the only force. And I do think that we have a whole new era of active citizens who are pleading for us to develop strategies that increase their ability to live well in their community. We're not desperate for money in the ways that we were 10 years ago. And so I think a lot of us have been re-elected, or newly elected on the basis of representing the locals first on many of these issues. And I really think that's where we need to go. I think we definitely have to go to the legislature. I didn't realize that that would be in their purview, but it makes total sense with the State Port Authority. I think we have to give it our best shot in a new era of livability for our city. So that's where I would support you, Mr. Seekins.
Councilmember.
You can always call me Harry. Have we approached the Port Authority before about this? And if, why not approach them again? We need to, because, I mean, for me, and I work in the maritime industry, this is my field. I'm around them all the time. They have mentioned several times about strengthening the relationship with the city of Charleston. And if with all due respect, if we've already come to the conclusion that, oh, it'll pass in the House, but it's probably going to get turned down in the Senate, if we had the Port Authority behind us, then we have a lot better chance of getting it passed both places. So I think we've got to approach them first and find out where they stand. If they're going to shut us down, then we just need to move on to something else.
So just quickly, I'll turn it over to you, Mayor, and then I'll give it up.
May I share a few observations?
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Lewis.
I had my hand up for Councilman White, but I know it's a hot subject and it's brought up. I think we need to have a meeting with the Charleston County Legislative Delegation just to see what their feeling is about it. And if you feel that we can get it passed through them, then we approach the state postal authority about it. But we got to start somewhere. And Councilman Brady, like he said, he brought this stuff up years ago, but it got shut down. The new council, new mind, new mayor. We'll try it again because we need the revenue. Thank you.
You're 100% right. We just need to leave it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think if we're going to make this argument, we have to make a transparent, honest financial presentation on this. Emotionally, that was a good presentation today. The reality of it is that we know the revenue isn't zero, Councilmember Seekins. You know that. So it affected us emotionally in the room. But for us to make our case to the state of South Carolina, we have to have an economic impact study from a city's perspective. You better believe the State Post Authority has it from theirs. There are 46 counties in the state of South Carolina. Anybody want to guess how many counties have cruise ship terminals? One. Okay. So when you go to the state General Assembly, that senator from Fairfield or that House member from Walhalla, when you look at taking money from the state, they're going to look at it like we're out of our minds. And if we were to have if we were to say, here's our financial impact study, then I think you begin to make an argument. To my knowledge, we've never done that. We've had emotional conversations and certain fact points, but the state port's going to be able to come back with a financial impact study and say, yeah, we do contribute to the city of Charleston. They're going to be able to say, when those longshoremen come up there and the stevedores come up there and assist those passengers, those longshoremen earn salaries, they come back here, they pay city taxes, they pay property taxes, they go on the auto mile and they buy automobiles. Those businesses pay business license fees to the city, so they're going to eat us up with that economic impact study. We don't have that from the city's perspective. We haven't hired a financial consultant that has looked at best practices around the country to say, maybe it isn't a head tax. If we can get the head tax, I'd agree. Maybe it's another fee. We haven't expounded economically in that way. And I think if we're going to make that approach to the General Assembly, we have to have the financial facts that somebody can grab their chin and say, well, you know, you do make a point. We're not going to be able to do it, you know, with the picture of a small cruise ship, a medium-sized cruise ship, and a larger cruise ship. That's going to work in this venue, and I agree with you. Listen, I'm with you on that, okay? But I know we're going to get tore out the frame if we go up with a presentation like that. We're going to get tore out the frame if we go talk to Jim Newsom like that. We're going to get tore out the frame if we go to the chamber with that. We have not done our homework from our perspective to be able to tell why why our costs and the revenue stream to us is legitimate and where it's lacking. So if we want to do this and we want to be in a position to approach and lobby the General Assembly, I mean, we all know senators, we all know members in the House of Representatives, but do we know enough to get a majority of the House? Do we know it's 46 senators? Do we know 24 senators to be able to get a majority vote in the Senate? I know we're not going to get close to that if we don't have the financial impact study from the city's perspective to be able to say financially why it makes sense to do this. And in my opinion, we haven't done that. Now, I would be in favor of voting to hire and get the proper economists, consultants to put together that economic impact study from the city of Charleston's perspective, based on what we get directly, indirectly, and hopefully what we should be getting, which makes sense. So I think if we're going to approach this, that would be one of the first legs to take, because we're not going to be able to do it shooting from the hip. We get turned down so fast in the General Assembly. You know, I understand the tourism management thing.
It's a study.
Oh, okay. Have we done it? Well, I think if we're going to put together the strategy, we need to put together our financial story first. And I think we're on the same page here, Councilman Seeking. So if that's going to be something we're going to explore and put on the next agenda, I'll be right there with your vote for it. But anyway.
Councilmember Gregory.
Clerk of Council, if you could pull the discussions that we had on this, because if I'm not mistaken, there was some type of impact study done. It might have been done by the Ports Authority. I don't know.
The college did. The
College of Charleston. Someone did. So we're not reinventing wheels. If we can, right? We can. Right. Let's just see if we can pull that info. Thank you.
Wait a minute. Mr. Mayor,
Councilman
sounds like everybody else have done these studies. Who's done it from the city of Charleston's perspective? Who's done an economic impact study from the city of Charleston's perspective? I heard Historic Charleston and College of Charleston, but did we hire people? Did the city of Charleston hire for these studies to be done?
We have not, but I do want to share a few things with you. And thank you, Councilmember Seeking, for bringing this before us. I thought we were going to get a review of the tourism management plan, but I'm glad you specified on this topic. And believe it or not, it's been on my mind over the last year. And I have met with Jim Newsom about this matter, and I've asked him, Councilmember Gregory and Griffin, about his thoughts and feelings about it. And I don't think he would mind me sharing with you that he is adamantly opposed to us having head tax. Okay, I don't think he would mind me sharing that with you. And I will. You know, we talked about this last night when we were at the Charlestown Neighborhood Association talking about funding for drainage improvements, which in my mind is of the utmost importance in our city. And right now, and this, I'm all for any kind of revenue stream that we can get to help pay for additional drainage projects, believe me. But you know, I don't know if Representative Cogswell was being a little optimistic about being able to get this passed in the House. I would question that, knowing what I know about the Port Authority and the rest of the state of South Carolina. But Senator Campson quickly made the comment that the chances of this thing passing the legislature is next to zero, very low, and that one senator, in fact, you know, can hold up the process on the Senate side. And you know, he pointed out who they're naming this new terminal after is a state senator from the upstate. Not that he might do this, but anyway, you know, the fact of the matter, as Senator Campson shared with us last night, is the upstate and the other 45 counties get the benefits of the great economic impact of the Port of Charleston, servicing BMW and Michelin and all the factories and businesses in our state. We have to bear the quality of life issues. So most of the rest of the state is not so concerned about our quality of life issues. And so when the Port Authority is against it, and a number of influential senators and House members who are very supportive of everything that the port does, it makes it very difficult to get anything passed. So I made the comment last night, somewhat in jest. I think General Moultrie was a great patriot, you know, but when he was governor in 1786 and allowed the state capital to go to Columbia, he didn't really do us any favors down here.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I think Mayor John P. Grace was one of the great mayors of Charleston who, when the port activity of our city had fallen completely in disrepair, he coalesced the wharfs under the ownership of the city of Charleston, used to own all those docks, and we sold it all to the state in the 1940s. maybe that allowed it to grow like it has into what it is today. But anyway, I don't know in 2020 hindsight that we did ourselves a favor there either. So anyway, getting something passed, and I got to share with you, I went to the opening ceremony over at the Yorktown recently, week before last, when they started the dredging operation. It had nothing to do with cruise ships. I mean, deep in the harbor, we can take the big container vessels and all like that. And the head of BMW was there, the head of Michelin was there, half of the upstate legislators were there. It was a love feast, I can tell you. And they loved the Port of Charleston, okay? And so it's a very difficult thing. So we have to be very strategic, as you mentioned. And so, like this year, when I was thinking about what we ought to be asking the state legislature for, the thing that rose to the top for me was, and thank goodness for Representative Cogswell and Senator Kempson and their help in getting this bill as far as it has already. It hadn't completed yet, but we might get it passed this year to allow us to use accommodations and hospitality fees for drainage and flooding improvements, okay? So I don't know about y'all, but I believe it kind of works this way, that if you raise an issue that's going to upset a lot of people and thinking about, what Low Country's trying to do. I believe sometimes that politics is the art of the possible and what you can get done. And so that's why strategy for this year was to focus on what I felt like we could actually get accomplished up there and add some funding to from on an issue that shouldn't be so controversial. The head tax request is going to be very controversial, and I didn't want to poison the water, so to speak, to get something good accomplished. So you have to think about that going forward, and I would say respectfully it's too late for this legislative year to add something new. Now, in the meantime, what I've tried to focus on within city staff is what are our real costs. Even though I hadn't done a economic impact study, I did ask our internal auditor, Robert Majernik, to do an audit of all the things that we do charge the Port Authority for, because they should be paying the true costs of everything that's happening. And in fact, I'm not sure our police policy and city policy really allows us to capture the true costs of even using those police cars out there. So we are looking at changing those policies so that we can fully charge, maybe with a little added administrative fee, the full cost of whatever it is that is being incurred by the passenger ships being here. And if there are other costs involved, if they weren't using a state street, if they're using a city street, our drainage system, there are other costs that I believe that we can legitimately ask the Port Authority to participate in. Of course, Jim Newsom was quick to remind me of the money he gives to Carter every year to help pay for the downtown shuttle.
Stop giving it.
We got it.
We got it. I think we had to go knock on the door with the collection agent, but we did get the money from them this year. So they do participate in certain things, but I view to explore every fee possible, that we could do locally. And do a study of the economic impact. But I got to tell you, it's a high mountain to get over. And I just wanted to openly share that with council because that's part of reality.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
You're not 99% right. You're 100% right on that. And anybody who spent any time in the General Assembly, anybody you've heard the term the state of Charleston. The state of Charleston. I never understood that until I met Vanessa in Columbia. But they actually, people in the Senate and the General Assembly refer to Charleston like we think we're a separate state down here. And believe it or not, it finds its way into appropriation. It's not right, but that's the piece we're against. So that's why, exploring fees, I'm sure, I don't know if it's calculated in the fees when we charge them for policemen. Who pays for the training of all those police officers? City of Charleston does. I don't know whether that's factored into the rental fee, if you will, when it's being charged to the State Post Authority for their usage. So I think consultants can help up with things like that. So what you said, I endorse 100%. You're 100% right on that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. If we could move forward to our amended item, the appointment of a new city police chief. And when I made the announcement here the other day, I started thanking our men and women who serve in the police department. They're looking after our public safety every day. And I thank again the amazing 45 years of service of our interim chief, Jerome Taylor. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do for the city of Charleston. But as you know, we went through a process, and I want to thank City Council for your involvement and your interview process and your feedback to me, but also the private citizens who joined us on a number of committees to interview all the candidates: Helen Hill, Margaret Seidler, Dot Scott with the NAACP, members of the Public Safety Committee, and after much deliberation, I recommend to council the appointment of a fine individual and public servant and a career officer in the name of Luther Reynolds to be the next police chief of Charleston. Councilmember Shade, we have a motion to bless that and a second. Any discussion, please? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Councilmember Lewis,
I just want to say one thing, Mr. Mayor. You are the mayor, and that's your department here. You have the right to appoint it. You call us on Thursday night, probably something changed, and you said that's who you hired. That was fine. You asked me my preference. I told you who my preference was. You said, then I'll bring it to y'all. My thing is that you were going to bring it to City Council today. Some of us were on our way the next morning to a conference in Washington. I'm the co-chairman of the Public Safety Committee. I would love to have been here when you made your announcement. You didn't even tell us that you were going to make your announcement on Friday. And I felt very hurt about that. I think the way you did it, you could have done it a little bit. But that was your choice. You are the mayor, and I respect your choice.
Thank you. Well, I did talk to all of you the week or two before that about your thoughts, and I respect that. Thank you. Yes, sir. Councilmember Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I too respect your choice. I understand that you have the right as mayor to hire and fire. But on this one, just for the records, I've got to say that Chief Taylor and his 45 plus years of service to the city came up, in my opinion, and I haven't even talked to Chief Taylor about this. Chief Taylor came on this police force when, as a resident of Charleston, we had what I call a bully police force. It came from a bully police force into being a professional police force under Chief Greenberg. He was a part of that for 20 years, I believe, with Chief Greenberg. Our police force went from the bully police force to a police force that had, I don't know, 75, maybe 80% college degrees or better. Then we had Chief Mullen, and that professionalism continued, and Chief Taylor, as deputy chief, oversaw 11 years of the management style of Chief Mullen. Again, our police force continued along a track of professionalism, going from about 75% to maybe 80, north of 85%, with our policemen having college degrees or better. He was here and played a vital role in Mother Emanuel tragedy. He was here and played a vital role with the Donzel Cornell incident. He certainly was a part of the Walter Scott, because if you think, well, that's in North Charleston, we all join at the same hip. What can be a spark in North Charleston can be a fire in Charleston, and vice versa. So those police forces have to communicate during emotionally charged events like that in a region as small as ours. We had the Virginia, you say, well, okay, after Chief Mullen left, he's been on backstroke and nothing went on. We had the Virginia incident where a mentally deranged person murdered a wonderful chef. By the time our police got that call, unfortunately, that chef had perished. From a policing standpoint, no patron got hurt or injured. No additional employees certainly were murdered. So from a policing standpoint, our police force, we couldn't have asked for any better results. Most recently with the Heidi event. Local, state, national, obviously FBI. I mean, it was like clockwork. So it's for that reason, no disparity on Mr. Reynolds. I mean, he's a fine man. I had an opportunity to spend a good bit of time with him. For that reason, I thought we already had a good man. So we're going to put a motion on the floor. I thought those things need to be stated for the record. But I'll be voting against it. It's not going to be unanimous because I thought it was a better way to do it, and you and I discussed that. But I think the opportunity should have been given, frankly, to Chief Taylor. But that's not my call. That's your call, and you made it. I'm telling you, I'm respecting you for that, but I would have done it different. I will be voting negative on this one. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councilmember Mitchell?
Mr. Mayor, I know we go back some years, but when you called me and I told you my position, and I think everyone knows me here, when I think about something wholeheartedly and the way I am with my God and the way I feel in my spirit, if I don't feel is correct or something could have been done differently, I don't participate in it. And there's nothing differently I'm going to say here now that I haven't spoken to the mayor about. He knows me. I'm going to tell you exactly what I feel about something. It's not knocking anyone. It's not knocking Mr. Reynolds, because I just met Mr. Reynolds from the time we did the interviewing. That's about it. You know, so I can't say anything bad about him. I can't say anything so far as the mayor's going, because it's a prerogative. This is the way our municipal government is. But I just felt that it could have been done a little differently. And that's my opinion, my own personal opinion. And I feel that way wholeheartedly because I have watched and I have seen the police department have come together. I have seen the police department right now have, on both sides, all the officers are working together with as one. And I look at those things, because I tell, like I say a lot, I'm in that community a lot. When things happen in this community, I'm out there. Councilman Lewis and I, if something happened in his district, I'm there. If something happened in my district, we're there if it's 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's a little different from what I've seen with the police department than others might be seeing, because I'm out there all the time. I'm out in the street all the time, you know. And I know what our interim chief was doing since he was there. And I just believe, I wholeheartedly believe, and I prayed on it a lot, and that's what I do. And I believe it could have been done a little differently, And like I told the mayor, that's your opinion. I said that's the way you can do it, but I don't think I can go and support right now. And this don't have nothing to do with the mayor. This don't have nothing to do with the Mr. Reynolds who was hired. Not personally. I don't go with personal vendetta against anyone. That's not me. But my whole heart feelings is the way I did it. And I pray on this. And this thing has bothered me ever since I heard it. You know, and when I wasn't, like I said, we wasn't here. We was in Washington, D.C. when they said that the news came about. And I know the mayor spoke to me and said who he was going to announce. And I relayed the same thing to him.
Yes, sir.
Same thing. It's no different. You see, and that's just me, and that's just the way I am. You know, so, you know, it is what it is, but I'm happy to be me. I'm going to be me. And that's the only thing it can be. I can't be someone else. And like I said, I don't have to go along to get along. That's not me. I'm going to do what I feel is right to me, and so I can go home and I can rest well. That's just the way it is.
Councilmember Lewis.
Just one thing I left out, Mr. Mayor, on that conversation on last Thursday night. The thing that bothered me, I don't know what you and Chief Taylor talk about. I weren't there. But the only thing you said to me is, I'm looking for a police chief who's going to be with us 5 to 10 years. There's no guarantee nobody going to steal nobody's job 5 to 10 years these days. I don't know whether you ask him if he's going to be here 5 to 10 years or you think Mr. Reynolds will be here 5 to 10 years, I don't know. But I think that was a poor excuse. And that's why I am voting against it. Other than that, you know, I'm fine. Your decision is your decision. But to make a statement like that, you should have never made it.
I'm reminded of a comment that I heard from Senator Hollings one time when someone was talking to him and about the ability of a U.S. Senator to appoint a federal judge, like it was really, impactful thing. And the senator said, heck, man, it's one of the worst things I ever had to do. I made one friend and 300 enemies. And I do believe Luther Reynolds will be a great police chief for all of our community. I prayed over this as well. It's been a most difficult decision because I am so respectful, not just of Chief Taylor, but of all of our fine police department. And you're right, they've done an incredible job throughout. I recommend Luther Reynolds to you as the next police chief of Charleston. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much. So next we go on to our Committee on Public Works and Utilities, Chairman Waring. Any discussion? Any report?
For the Vice Chair.
Vice Chair Griffin.
We added a couple of, really we've set a public hearing for next meeting on the close and abandon a portion of Kinloch Court. We had a bunch of information about temporary encroachments, and we spent the majority of our discussion talking about FEMA buyouts and the Church Creek Basin. And that is going to be a standing report, right? Moving forward, every meeting that we have, we'll have an update on FEMA buyout process and also where we are in the moratorium, where we are in the implementation of the study, because it's outlined in the ordinance that we have provided monthly updates on where we are to relay to our constituents. So we'll get it at Public Works and then we'll relay it at City Council. Thank you. It's downtown on Meeting Street, Upper Meeting, right? Upper Meeting.
Yeah, we are.
Right. Kinloch Court.
That's going to be my district somewhere.
Okay. That's all. But you're going to have a public hearing, so that's fine. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any discussion or comments? All in favor of the report, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Chairman White, Council Committee of Ways and Means. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you so much.
Councilmember Lewis, just the word West Edge was in there. The project is to repair the parking lot on our own city property.
I may have not explained this since you've been here, but I might not be living, you might not be living, but West Edge will displace half of the people on the west side.
Yes,
in
sir.
that particular area. That's my belief, and I can't sit down here and vote on nothing that I think will displace my people.
Yes, sir.
That's all, sir. Thank you.
Okay, bills up for second reading. We have 1 through 4. Any discussion on any of those? We've seen them before. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next for third reading and ratification, items 1 through 4. We have a motion and a second. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Give me just a moment here, and I'll sign up some of these here things. Forward. We have bills up for first reading. All of these items, 1 through 8, are related to the West Ashley annexation. And Francis Cantwell is here to answer any questions that anyone
Move for approval.
have on them. We have a motion to approve. Councilmember Griffin.
Francis, I just want to make sure that we are, we're basically just getting everything in place to where we line up with how Charleston County already has their zoning, right?
That's correct.
That's all we're doing here is lining it up to be exact same zoning that's already in place now.
It is, well, I don't want to tell you it's exact because there were a few tweaks that the Planning Commission is recommending that we recommended to them. But the purpose of all of these documents is to get in place the comprehensive plan amendment to extend our land use plan beyond the urban growth boundary, to create the AG8 and the AGS districts for the city that applies to this area and perhaps other areas if we grew outside urban growth boundaries, like perhaps on Johns Island, who knows. There are slight differences where we are, rather than making a use that's in existence now a conditional use, we're making it an allowed use. So nothing significant to any of the changes. Then we were proposing that once y'all create those zoning districts, you zone those properties to those districts. They will be AG8, AGS, and 2 of the properties will have a portion of them zoned SR7, which is 1 unit per acre, which is consistent with what our comp plan says for residential development beyond the urban growth boundary. And then the final thing are development agreements, which the larger landowners have requested, essentially to lock in their zoning so that they can do what they're doing now, which is primarily agricultural related uses. You know, they're not used to being in a city and they don't want an urban council down the line after this administration or the next telling them that they cannot continue what's going on their property now. There will be slight wordsmithing modifications that I'll recommend to you on the development agreements when it comes back to you for public hearing and final action, which will be the first meeting in April. All of this was discussed at the Planning Commission and they're all for it.
Councilmember Wagner.
Question. Doesn't open the door for potential growth outside the urban growth boundary. Does this open the door for potential movement of the growth boundary at any time that you can see?
No, sir. I mean, that would be something that I think the county has established the urban growth boundary and the city has adopted it as part of our comprehensive plan. It won't change unless a body of city council chooses to do that.
That's correct.
There was a lot of questions thrown at me because of the word urban growth boundary.
That's right.
And I want to make real sure.
That's right.
Councilmember White.
following along the same questioning, when I looked at the map, it did not appear, I guess what I was looking for was parcels that were being maybe recolored to show which parcels were being allowed for development, if you will, outside of their urban growth boundary. But effectively, we're not trying to move the line. We're just simply stating that under these very special circumstances, these particular parcels are going to have development agreements that would not otherwise be given that opportunity with the current urban growth boundary.
That's correct.
Okay.
And the map really shows the urban growth boundary, but it shows the city limits going to Dorchester County, which is where we are now, or we will be. And so between the urban growth boundary and the county, the Dorchester County line, the recommendation of the plan is agricultural and one-to-one zoning.
Well, I just would say, you know, as a follow-up along the same lines as Councilman Wagner, that anytime we make a change like this or allow for something like this, and again, this is very special circumstances, but I want to make sure that everyone, for the record, understands that it is only because of these very special circumstances that, quite frankly, may never occur again, but there shouldn't be this idea that should float out into the community that we are setting any kind of precedent into the future of doing something additionally like this. It is only because of this one situation. And
it's this situation.
And it's for preservation, quite frankly.
That's exactly right. And I don't know if I told you this, I was telling you in the public hearing, but the lion's share of the properties that are being developed, with the exception of the large Whitfield tract and the Millbrook tract, the rest of the properties are subject to conservation easements. True Luck is not, but he's a smaller tract. But the lion's share of the properties that are annexed are already subject to conservation easements, which severely restrict what they can do. And so what's going on those properties now is allowed under that conservation easement, and we're just acknowledging that and protecting that use that the landowners have requested they want protected. And that's the purpose of the DAs. And to answer Mr. Moody's question before you ask it, those will come to the Real Estate Committee just as the other ones did before we bring them back for second reading.
You holding up those cue cards again?
Any other questions? Councilmember Griffin.
Can you kind of explain, I understand that since this is out of the urban growth boundary, they can only build, what, one house on every 8 acres? 7 acres? 7 or 8?
It's AG 8 is 1 to 8, 8 acres right. to one unit.
Right. My only concern here is that we found out from when we started this process and when we did the basin study that all of this acreage is inside the Church Creek Basin. And so I'm just a little bit nervous about future development out there because we already know the basin's at capacity.
Well, the AG 8 is the most restrictive category the city will have if you enact it.
And that's what the county.
That's what the county has. That's correct.
Any other questions? So I think we got numbers 1 through 8 all together. First reading. Councilmember Moody.
I didn't realize until I looked at the map that none of this is in Berkeley County, and these properties that were annexed are all
Dorchester County.
So we're not going into.
No, in fact, 2 of the tracts, they have a separate TMS number that is in Dorchester County, but those are not being subject to the annexation. That's correct.
We're staying in Charleston County. We have a motion. Okay. Any further questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Our next regular meeting is going to...
Miss...
Oh.
Everybody should have noticed some of that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
2 people I'd like to recognize in the audience. One of them, I think, clerked for you during the summertime. I'm going to let these 2 future leaders of America stand. One is Ross. Would you please stand? And the other is Alex. That's my grandson. They're currently super sophomores in college right now. One is at USC Beaufort. Winthrop. I'm sorry. USC Winthrop. And Alex, where you've been lost and found where?
I'm a Gamecock.
I'm a Gamecock.
Councilmember Moody.
I knew there was some reason that Councilmember Waring had on a bow tie tonight. I just wanted to recognize the burly bow tie man over there.
Councilmember Seekings and Mitchell.
I just want to ask schedule is, I see that under miscellaneous business, we have our next meeting Monday, March 26th, and the workshop on the 29th. Are we going to change that, the workshop before the council meeting, to talk about short-term rentals?
My belief is that we're going to have a mini.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I just saw that there's a workshop scheduled. Oh, okay.
So this starts, our regular meeting will be Monday, March 26th at 5 o'clock. We're going to try to have a workshop meeting, I think 2 hours would be enough, prior. Well, we start at 4:30. So let's start at 2:30. So we'll have 2 hours to workshop on short-term rental, and we'll have Ways and Means, and then we'll have city council meeting.
To answer
Councilmember Moody's question about committee meetings, we're trying to schedule those possibly on Friday.
So we will not have a workshop on Thursday?
No, we were still planning on having a workshop on Thursday, March 29th. That was going to be about other topics. That wasn't going to be about short-term rentals. Okay, does that make sense? And the reason we're moving to Monday, everybody's invited on Tuesday to come to the Dock Street Theater at 5 o'clock because the ambassador from the Netherlands is bringing his professional staff that knows a good bit about flooding and drainage, and they plan to make a presentation to us. So please come to that if you can. So,
yes,
come before us, Councilmember Mitchell.
I just want to make a quick statement. I think a lot of you might not know that the half of the public housing and Section 8 housing in this city all around is going to be affected a whole lot. So with the RAD program. So you got to be aware of that. So if you have any public housing in the district that you represent, you need to attend one of those meetings. They have all meetings already set. The Housing Authority is going to have these various meetings. I already went to one already, but I'm also having them to come to the Community Development Committee to explain to us. They're going to be affected. A lot of people is going to be affected, and that's why you see me fight so hard here for affordable housing and trying to keep things, because a lot of these people are not going to be in those housing anymore because the HUD office, if you know, the money have been cut a whole lot, and it's not going to be any bunch of subsidy anymore. So it's going to be terrible here in the city of Charleston. That's why I fight hard for affordable housing and fight, because people still need a place to stay.
So whether they're in your district or not, I would recommend you attend one of these meetings. Councilmember Jackson, I'm sorry, we're not quite done.
I was hoping we could put on the record the topics for the 29th in case the public wants to attend. I know they don't.
That's correct. Right. Our performance improvement process update.
Okay, but it'll be out in plenty of time for the public to.
Absolutely.
It's not a date they expect to see.
Any further business? We stand adjourned. Thank you.